I know there was a lot of discussion about it, but remember when you go out of master mutual aid, you're actually going out for free. So that's why it's so important to make sure we're looking at our documents. We've had some great pre-position projects or standbys here in San Diego. Pre-position, I've been getting a lot of questions on when you guys go out as a strike team leader, how or where does it say CFAA on a pre-position? When you get a pre-position order, you will not have CFAA written on your order. A pre-position does not deal with CAL FIRE. Pre-position does not deal with the federal government. A pre-position is an application that your op area coordinator applies for, puts out a letter, puts out a matrix, and gets scored on. When that score comes back, there's three categories. There's moderate, severe, and extreme. And depending what you qualify for is the amount of resources that you get for your operational area to be placed within your county. So when you see, you guys might have a pre-position, there might be one strike team, there could be two strike teams, there could be two strike teams and hand crews. The amount of resources that you actually get acquired are based on the severity of that matrix that's being filled out. So that's where we get the total number of the equipment. Based on the actual IROC order, when those get produced, you will not see CFAA written on a document. What you'll see is usually approved by or in accordance with the pre-position guidelines. And with the guidelines that Chief Barron will get a letter back, or whoever fills out that application gets the application, it usually says in there, or it should say in there, fuel, hotel, per diem, whatever expenses will be covered within this pre-position. So if you ever have a question about that, maybe it's a good idea that we start sharing more often, or making sure everybody's getting a copy of the approved guidelines. And I think we're doing a good job about trying to get that out to the strike team leaders if I know who they are right away, sharing the actual document with them as well. Because we pounded so much about making sure all your documents say CFAA, and this one's worded a little bit different because it's actually being paid by OES. And right after the assignment, there's also a survey that I'm usually calling you guys about, and I try not to hound you, but they're hounding me, and make sure that that survey is completed as soon as the strike team assignment is done. So where this money came from was this pot of funds was actually Assembly Bill 47 or 74, one of those two. Sorry, it's been going on for a few years. This Assembly Bill is what allocates this money for pre-position throughout the state. So there's a pot of money, and that survey at the end is what validates our funding, continuous funding for the next coming years. So when I'm asking you guys to do a survey, it's not for my need. It's actually, we have to put an annual report together every year showing, the assembly, hey, we still need this money, we still need this approved, and we're actually trying to allocate additional funds. So when we put this report together, all the backup that we have and all the verbiage you guys put in there saying, yeah, we were pre-positioned, we responded to additional incidents, we had 10 additional engines on wildland fires that could have been from 50 acres, could have had the potential of 1,000 acres, but because of these additional engines, we were able to mitigate this and keep it within a smaller footprint. Those are the kind of verbiage and the kind of survey points that we're looking for to continue this through. So those are just a couple of points I have. There is a strike team leader class coming up that'll be at NTC, posted with San Diego Fire Department, and that's going to be, I think it's June 9th through the 13th. So if you guys have anybody looking to take strike team leader, that will be free of cost, and it'll be June 9th through June 13th. So if you want to reach out to Kevin at San Diego Fire Department Training Center, that could be fun. Any questions for me? Any issues, any pending issues that I need to be aware of?
Chief, back to the Riverside fire, I think one of the challenges on that deployment, if I do remember now, is it was late at night and there were no orders in the beginning.
Yeah, so it was on a Sunday evening, I believe. And the fire went from a small fire to a very big fire very rapidly. So I think there was a delay in orders, yes. Why that delay happened, I don't only be guessing. However, it just became immediate need right away. And the initial threat, you guys aren't familiar with that incident. It's a very nice area of Riverside City that actually flanks both sides of the river bottom. And there's some very large homes along that were immediately threatened, which drew the reason for MMA. And there were several strike teams, several hand crews brought in to mitigate it, and they did a great job. But yeah, I think there was a little bit.
Yeah, and the only reason I bring it up is that just for the education part of the strike team leaders is you will get that.
Absolutely.
And you know, as we got phone calls, my strike team leader calling me, hey, we're getting deployed, we don't have orders. You know, it does raise a question, you know, for all the things that we were taught about, you know, having the proper paperwork and documentation. Just it's a reminder that we still may get punched out in immediate need and have to go without question.
And we talked about this at the San Diego County Fire Chief meeting a couple months ago, and Chief Calderwood and Chief Barron reminded the group as a whole that there was a decision made several years ago that there is certain areas, Orange County, maybe Riverside and Carroll County, that if something comes to immediate need, that they were not going to question that they would go ahead and get people on the road. But then there's also a reason why you guys devised some response areas to get the closest resources instead of tracking resources all the way across the county, North County going to San Diego or East County going all the way to Orange County. So that was brought up, and it was reminded of the group that there is a mission to support, and that was discussed. But you bring up another point about resources getting called out. I will tell you, the line fire was extremely complex, and Eaton fire were extremely complex about getting orders. And I know he's already laughing because we were chasing orders for how many days? You were still coming in the reaper. It took me almost 5 days to get everybody's orders cleaned up on the line fire. And then that's just because so many orders were produced and so many phone calls were happening and so many resources were immediate need type stuff. And they were actually, a lot of it was going dispatch center to dispatch center, not using IROC and going through IROC. And I'll be the first to tell you, IROC is very cumbersome. It's not always the easiest to use. But a lot of that was happening. So it took several days. And there was no issue for me to have to do the additional work, because when I see that, like Kevin coming to me and saying, hey, I still don't have my order, where's my order? I'm constantly looking those up because I know at the end of the day, when we need to close out, we need to make sure we have everything. So we tell everybody not to go out without their orders, and that happened a couple times this year, which is asking complexity for it. But yeah, patience.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Chief Barron?
Morning, everybody. I'll just make a couple comments on behalf of Chief Rodas. Well, I may say it a little bit differently than he does, just because we have been lucky to be able to be put in a position where I can say those things on behalf of all your fire chiefs. But when we respond on Master Mutual Aid, we've all agreed to be a signatory to that agreement. And so if you get launched, behind the scenes, my first phone call is usually to him, and then it's to your zone coordinators. Your zone coordinators are already talking to your O1s. Your O1s, if you're already getting launched, your O1s have already kind of been briefed that this potentially is going to happen. So I don't want you guys to worry or chase down what order you're being sent on. I appreciate you guys being diligent in that and giving me a phone call or going directly to Chief McQueen to try to figure out what financial code you're going out as, especially if it's late. Kevin did a great job calling me, and we communicated real quick, and I pretty much tripped him over to Chief Rodas because he was going to be engaged in that incident. But just remember that, get on the road, right? And then let Chief McQueen and myself work through our rep at OES, and we'll get you those financial orders. We know that you're going to be operating without a backstop from a fiscal standpoint for a short time, or maybe nothing at all. So we've done the same thing over in the last 7 years. We've sent strike teams to LA with the uncertainty whether it was going to be covered or not. We've actually sent a strike team all the way up there, and they got there at midnight, and they said nope, this is Master Mutual Aid, and I said nope, and they turned them around and they came home. So just realize that we understand that. I revisit revisit that conversation with your fire chiefs all the time. There are those potentials, but that's not your job to try to chase it down. You have enough to worry about. You have engines that are assigned to you. You have reporting locations. Let us do that work for you. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is. We volunteered for these positions, and that's our job. Let us figure out those headaches. And believe me, there's quite a few phone calls that are happening between us and dispatch to South Alpha, to Chief Rohodes. We're trying to figure out those conversations. So anything on that, as far as your financial code that's going to be placed on you. Believe me, before I send anything out, I try to pull that CFA. I try to get the rest overnights. I try to make sure those are all established before you guys can leave today. But there's going to be those times, especially Riverside, Orange County, sometimes LA, in those areas that's the gray area. If they're losing homes, that's our job. We need to get you guys out and rolling, get the rolling stock out there to those locations. Because we would expect the same thing when the day comes and we have been depleted of resources. We're going to want the same thing from Orange County, Riverside, and LA for us in those positions. The last thing that I want to do is somebody sitting on a couple strikings just because they're waiting for a financial code. So we kind of think that process through. We want to be reciprocal in that manner. Pre-positions. So that's another thing, not necessarily from the north zone, but from the other zones. They wanted to see the pre-position orders. They wanted to see the CFAA. That's not happening. Just like Chief Rohodes said, you may get a letter. I don't send all that documentation that comes from OES to me, or I'll share it with the zone coordinators, but I'm not sending it to the striking group. Maybe we should. Maybe that's something that we can revisit.
Sometimes they ask, well, what's being covered? And that's the normal question. They're saying, hey, how do we know we're being reimbursed? I said, it's actually on the letter. Chief Barron has requested approval for all this in the cover letter. So I've had a couple of finance people, not firefighters or the striking leaders, but admin staff saying, hey, we want verbiage, because since they're not seeing CFAA in there, or they're not seeing a finance code, they're saying, well, how do we know? I said, well, Chief Barron, I'm going to send you the cover letter with the approval sheet, and that's suffice for them. So I just, that's your call. It's a common question.
Yeah. To be honest with all of you guys, the reason I don't send that to you is because I don't want to bombard you with a whole bunch of stuff that really doesn't have any, you're taken care of on the pre-code side. If it's approved and we've assembled you, there hasn't been a pre-position that hasn't been approved for the fuel, food, and lodging. Now, he's helped me out once or twice where that wasn't in the letter, and then he kicked it back and he said, hey, make sure you put the food, fuel, and lodging. It's kind of a standard, I would say, that it has to be included. So that's the admin side that we're trying to take care of. So if we're assembling you, you should assume that you are being taken care of across the board. If there's something that's not being taken care of, we as either operators or coordinators will let you know. But just assume that if you've been dispatched and assembled, we've done a lot of work on the backside to make sure that everything's finalized and approved. So I don't want you to worry about that and delay whatever response that you may have. But I do appreciate the diligence of ask the question. If you're worried about it, ask the question, because maybe we missed something. So we're not perfect, but we do. It has to go through a couple layers in order to get it done. The last thing I'll just mention real quick, because I know there's a lot of conversation that needs to take place, is the request for kind of an operational process or policy for strike team leaders to kind of follow during the pre-vote. We're in the middle of designing or putting that policy together. It's going to end up being like an operating directive. North Zone does a really good job with what the expectations from a pre-vote is. Not saying that the other zones don't, but there's just a little bit of a degree of what is the actual expectation. Who do they report to? Who do they get on the radio with and talk to? Okay? because we have Northcom and Northcom is our ops area, it's really easy for you guys to communicate with Northcom. They are they're the OAC, right? So when you get approved for a prepo, you belong to the op area. You don't belong to Heartland. You don't belong to Metro. You and every other prepo that's assigned to that prepo should be communicating directly through Northcom. So those operating directives and policy that we're developing will channel that for the strike team leaders to follow. Because there's a little hoopty that slows down the efficiencies of the communication where they go through Heartland contacts Northcom has to go back to Heartland. We're not doing that. There's a direct line of communication once you're assigned that area resource. That makes sense to all of you in this room because that's just what we do on a daily operation. So, but we are going to develop those. It'll go through your ops chiefs. It'll go through the zone coordinators, and we'll have Chief Rohodas kind of look at that, but then we'll adopt that at county chiefs level. When we have a prepo chief, it's going to be an operational chief from the North Zone. We will not send that out of the North Zone because of the relationship that we have with North Zone ops chiefs understand the relationship. They understand the policy procedures with Northcom. So it'll never go outside of North Zone. I shouldn't say never, because if we have something going on in the North and Central, obviously we'll be flexible. But the idea is that'll never be North Zone. When we have that prepo chief, our strike team leaders, you're working for them just like a division. So if you look at it as a division, they are your resource. They will coordinate with you. It takes a little bit of the command and control side off your plate of strike team leaders, but there's still a lot in play. So just know that when you have that prepo ops chief, they're working to assemble all the strike teams or whatever resources or assets that we have prepoed within the county. So you'll report to them, and then those prepo chiefs will report either to the North Zone coordinator or to myself, and it's worked out really, really well. The confusion comes in when we don't have that prepo chief assigned because we didn't hit the score matrix. As a strike team leader, you're the one that's going to be making those decisions and then going either direct with Chief McLeod or myself. The expectation is that we take care of personnel, make sure that all their needs are met. Keep them busy because that stagnation is probably the killer of all motivation on those strike teams. But it doesn't mean that you need to drive them all day long, right? You need to rest them, you need to feed them, make sure they're taken care of. But the area spam, that's all good stuff. Depending on why we're prepoing, review those topics. Go do some rope rescue stuff. Just keep them engaged, keep them motivated, and take care of the people. And we've done a really good job with that, so I appreciate that. Any other questions for me? I think I just wanted to cover those two topics. Good. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief. Chief McQueen?
Just dovetailing on what Chief Barron said. So it's nice having all of this in the North Zone. So there's usually one communication route, and Chief Barron, myself, and Chief Rohodas, we see it. So there's not this duplication in communication. Kudos to Chief Lynn, Chief Ford, and Chief Sanchez from Encinitas. They were in those pre-position ops chief positions, did a fantastic job. We're continuing to fine tune the roles and responsibilities of that ops chief in that position. And we'll be working on a cheat sheet or a cue card that the ops chief can actually read off to the different strike team leaders and show those expectations and how they communicate, what's covered, not covered, and who they're supposed to report to. So, because you could be a new ops chief in that spot, and yeah, we want to make sure your heart rate and blood pressure are low, not spiked. But we're here to make sure that you guys are set up for success. But yeah, kudos to you guys for a nice job done.
Thank you. The only ops chief I know with a good heart rate and blood pressure is Bill. He's pinging all the time.
True. But when I need to, you guys can count on me.
All right, thank you, chiefs. Hey, you know, we designed this class and we talked about this meeting as being primarily this event that the park fire last meeting, and then all of a sudden January hit, and we had a bunch of unexpected deployments. So we're gonna catch up on the back end with all the other deployments in January and the ones we missed in the later fall area, but we're gonna focus just on this one deployment for the rest of the class or the rest of the meeting. Why don't we start with Chief Beverly, and if Jason Berg, Captain Berg is on, he's the trainee, so they can ping off of each other on stuff. They were deployed to several different fires and ended up at the park fire, correct?
Yes.
Oh.
Right, so, in front of everybody. So we initially got dispatched, I think it was immediate heat to that Warden fire up in Riverside. Chief Rojas was talking about, spent a day or two there, then we went to the Gold Complex, I think, and then moved from the Gold Complex up to the park fire. We initially got into Chico. We spent 1 or 2 nights there, and then we got redeployed to a second base camp that was established in Red Bluff. It was much easier for us to get to, more towards the head of the fire. So in our mind, it was like the right place to be at the right time because that's where the fire was heading, or so we thought. And nice thing was we also had Oceanside. You guys were there, I think, on the Type 6s or the task force. Yeah. So we had, some other resources from the zone up there in that area as well. We didn't necessarily start working on the division where this incident occurred, but I'll talk a little bit about kind of what we saw when we first got up there and kind of the little bit of the confusion and some of the issues without pointing fingers or blaming. We were right on a break between land that was on the CAL FIRE side and land that was owned by the Forest Service. So there was some disagreements regarding tactics and strategy and how they were going to go about mitigating the issue. The other thing that we had was in the 5 or 6 days that we were there, I want to say we had 5 or 6 different divisions. We had a division that we something quick and asked to be demoted. We had a division that never answered the radio. I mean, there was a whole host of things that set us up for failure, or set us up to be not in a great position. But the one thing that I will say is we eventually, on our last working day there, we had, I want to say it was a division chief from Orange County who came in and at the divisional briefing gathered us all around and said, I'm new to the area. This is my first day as a division here. I have zero situational awareness. I have no idea what's going on. And the first people that he grabbed were the hot shots, the crew that was working on that division, and they've been there for a week. And I vividly remember, and I think Jason can back me up on this, that was the first time where I've ever heard somebody come in and say, I have no idea what's going on. You guys have been here. What do you got? That crew supervisor from the hot shots laid everything out perfectly. Basically said, hey, this fire is in an inaccessible area. We can't get to it. It would be like a 2-hour drive on the dirt trail with a truck. This thing's going to wrap around and then it's going to impact, and I can't remember the name of that small little community that was down there on the meadow. But he said that's exactly where it's heading, which is conversely what the Forest Service guy said 5 days prior to that. So he knew it. He had situational awareness. But he was also the guy that said, "Demo me, you're not listening to what I'm saying." But it did exactly what that hotshot said, and that was the first time that I had heard any real meaningful discussion about, what's happening, where this thing is going, how's it going to impact, and when. So I think it's unfortunate that occurred on our last working period, because then all of a sudden we had a new strike team come over, a new strike team leader, a whole new crew get out there, but we didn't really see fire, other than one burn operation at the time that we were there. It was mostly prepping in anticipation. So that's it from my side of things. We got relieved by the incoming strike team. Had a brief conversation. There were some issues, I think, with you guys checking in. Same thing that we had with the line incident. So there was a lot of just, I would say, errors there or things that didn't go as you would expect. But pretty much all I have on my side. On Chief's side.
Yeah, we would have the 3 Type 6s, 2 Type 3 OES task force. We arrived a day later from them. We got lost in the shuffle at the Gold Fire, so we came down operation period later. But we ended up on the same ship, same division. And our first shift, very similar, like instilled zero confidence at all. The division, and again, not to point fingers, he had a humongous division geographically. He had a shit ton of resources. In our first probably 4 or 5 hours were 5 different start and stop orders. I need you to go over here. Wait, no, let's go over here. Just a constant back and forth. And then the burn operation that Kevin mentioned, you know, the hot shots were kind of leading it. We all met up for the burn briefing. The division wasn't even at the burn briefing. We kind of had this big briefing. I was buying in, like, sounds good. These guys know the weather was great. We come down, kind of lined out on this road we were going to hold. And the division came up to me and was like, okay, so we're going to burn here and do that. I'm like, no, that's not what we're doing. We're going to start here and go that way. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I'm like, holy shit. So talk about minimal confidence. Then we got moved to another division, and then we were on the division, because again, we were a day behind with when the burnover happened. And it was the same division that we had that first day. So already I had a bad taste in my mouth with this guy. And so when that happened, you know, I can tell the story later when he tried to send us right back to where they were just in at night, not seeing the country, fires already jumping the line, and we were ready to turn down the order. And we just kind of parked ourselves and said, you come tell us what to do and I'll turn down the order. He never came to us. So again, it was just a very jilted, not a seamless process from the very get-go.
Okay, your trainee,
West McGee.
okay. Is he on there?
No, he couldn't make it today.
Captain Berg, do you have anything to add?
No, I just reiterate everything Kevin said is spot on. There was very unclear direction on kind of where we fit in the incident as a whole and what our real objectives were. And there's definitely a lot of conflict between the forest, CAL FIRE side. So Kevin and I found ourselves bouncing back and forth and trying to make sense of all of it. And it wasn't until pretty late in our time there where we actually got any clear direction or a real plan that made much sense. So I'm just going to reiterate everything Kevin said, but nothing else.
All right, thank you. Okay, before I turn it over to them, show of hands who have had something like that before. I mean, I have, all of us have, right? We are strike team leaders for our teams, and we are in charge of our teams, and the responsibility for us is to take care of our troops, right? So we know our captains, we know our players in the other departments, and we are the team 6848 Charlie or whatever that identifier is. And we often don't know the division, nor do we know the capabilities or trust of the division until it's been exhibited or we've been won over and we trust that person. So this is a common denominator. It happens a lot. You got it?
Okay, great. We'll just get the AV stuff situated.
Luke was gonna get started on the introduction, but while he's doing that, I'll just mention that this isn't an AAR. We weren't given directive or authority by CAL FIRE to do that. It's just a conversation of lessons learned, and anytime that, you know, there's some obvious lessons learned from Luke and I, but I welcome more ideas for lessons learned. I want to come away from this better. I think we all do. And then if Kevin or Chief Beck or Captain Abraham was there that day, Captain Crandall was there that day, if you see something different than the way we see it, feel free to jump in anytime.
yeah, or if you have something you want to add that's going to bring value, because that's why we're here. We just want to pass on what we learned so that all of you can take away from it. Because I took a lot from it.
Yeah,
So I want to
absolutely.
share that.
Absolutely.
Can everyone on Teams hear and see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. There's going to be some videos. I don't think the audio is going to come through on Teams. We haven't been able to rectify that. So if you don't see audio on the videos, that's why. But there's still plenty of information. Thanks for the introduction too, and just kind of setting the stage from Chief Beverly. So it's interesting. You've been hearing it now, and hindsight, you know, is a much different perspective when you're rolling into something new. And so, you know, he has that picture. We're driving up with the swap crew, and everybody's excited. We're glad to get a deployment. We drove, you know, up all day, bed down in camp, and then we're getting ready to start all operational period.
It was nice getting there. We got there 17:30. By the time we got to Chow, we saw the task force, the Charlie Strike team where we're leaving. We saw our sprint from Central Zone, and we were getting as much intel as we could, but a lot of the intel consisted of other things that Chief Beverly was-
Yeah, some frustration, kind of unorganized. Chief Beverly and I were kind of working through what I call like bureaucratic challenges in camp. And so that kind of like took up some of the morning, just getting checked in and then getting checked out and so forth. But still kind of typical stuff. It kind of seemed like the fire was winding down. That was kind of like the turnover. Like, you know, the crews were hearing things like, yeah, we, you know, one crew to another, oh, we put it out, you know, you guys enjoy, you know, mopping up and that sort of just guys razzing each other. And so it's just interesting now, like looking back with that kind of mindset. It's been going for a long time, weeks and weeks and weeks, like an 80-page IAP that's mostly 204s with resources, and each page is full to the brim, and each resource on there is a strike team or a task force. Like there's just significant amount of resources. So you kind of feel like you're coming in for the final act and going to do some mop up even after the operational briefing and the fire behavior forecast. So we'll just start the park fire. It ended up reaching 429,000 acres. If you don't know where it is, it's between Sacramento and Redding, just on the east side of the 5 freeway. So it's up there. And this fire spread over 2 counties, over 400,000 acres. And it got into some Alaska National Forest and a lot of high value timber where they do logging. And some of the pictures you'll see some of the patchwork where they've done some clear cutting and replanting of trees.
Multiple fuel types started down in the grass, brush, moved up into the higher elevation, which is some of the thickest timber of white pine and ponderosa, and into really complex terrain.
Here's the final footprint of the fire. It started down here. The bottom of the screen is the heel of the fire. And you can see it took off. And this is really, you know, the scale is the thing I really want to like, the scale and relative size of the topography. So when you're standing there, it's just hard to really put into words until you're on the ground. But you can see here the patchwork on the right. For you guys in TV land, that's all over here. That's where they have been doing logging. So, you know, they modified the fuels, but it's all really heavy timber. But then the left flank on the screen is there's a lot of grasslands and brush and mixed stuff. So they had light flashy fuels, and that contributed to it taking off and getting so big. This one. I apologize that when we switched to computers, the font didn't translate, but just obvious stuff we tried to cover. We're OAS strike team on our, you know, with the mixed units we had Rancho Santa Fe, Paula, Escondido, San Marcos, and Oceanside. And Oceanside was in their local government rig because there was some maintenance going on their OAS.
And that briefing that morning started with weather, fire behavior. Well, yeah, weather, fire behavior. The weather, it was expected to be hot and dry. Obviously, it was really hot, but they were talking about conditions worsening for Tuesday and Wednesday. This was a Monday morning. They talked about complex terrain, possible to get pick up as diversion breaks, which they were expecting to do later, to pick up and make isolated runs, group torching, and things like that. But it was not a cataclysmic weather report or fire behavior report. What struck us the most of that briefing was how aggressive it was. I we talked about it later in our tailboard briefing, when it got to the campus, operational chief got up and gave his message. And Luke actually just re-listened to the briefing, so he would have a more direct quote when he's done here, but the way I remembered it, he said, the day for good ideas is over, this is the day to engage. This was the day that we were gonna actually improve lines, improve the lines that existed, and get some more contingency lines. But that was definitely a feeling there. We broke out to division breakout. We met with the division trainee, Joel, I don't know which name is Joel. The actual division was up, out, or he did not come to the briefing. That was his piece of dirt. He was the Cal Fire Battalion in that Tahoma district, and he was gonna stay out there, not come in, not make that 3-hour drive into briefing. So we expected to see him later, but right now we were just talking to the division training. Luke and I made real clear with the division training that this was our first, we were the crew swap unit, so this was the first time out of a piece of dirt. It was hard to hold his attention for more than a minute or two because he had a lot of resources to lie out. So the best direction we got was to meet him out at DC 23 and we get more information.
Sorry, we're having some display issues
Sorry,
with.
Greg.
I'm just gonna go, keep it going.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Sorry, Brian.
Yeah, so I was just telling them that we met with Joel, the division trainee, actual division, that was his piece of dirt. He was a battalion up there. He lived up there. He was close friends with, everybody that owned those logging rights up there. Great guy. We can talk more about him later. But yeah, so we did not meet him and we did not get real clear instructions on leaders of 10. We just got to go off the 204. I remember the instructions on the 204 were construct contingency line and improve and hold existing line. Not much information there. We got together before leaving camp. We got together with can't remember if it was officers or all personnel, just kind of get a quick briefing, re-summarize what we do from the breakout and from the incident briefing, and just talk about establishing LCS pace, how we're gonna get better as leaders of TAP.
I'm gonna interrupt you real quick because I'm afraid. And the guys on out in TV land, can you see the presentation?
No,
Okay,
not anymore.
okay. I'm just gonna reestablish it because I'm missing
Yeah,
what you're saying.
And I'll wait for you because I don't want to get too far ahead and say anything, but you might have more.
There's some like guys, you need to use the restroom. It's not a long joke, it's an ongoing joke.
It never gets old.
It never gets old.
I think we're good.
There's just a delay. Someone is probably not going to stay there. Watch it, but
I can't get it to change. It's on here. This one's me watching the feeds. Right, this is not control. I can't change that. So that's just.
You want to be the
Are we taking a break, Chief?
Take a 5-minute break.
5 minutes, yeah.
Whatever works for everyone. I'll just put it.
So Greg, right now, it's just not working on TV. It's working here.
I left off this briefing.
I was like,
Good facility.
It's all right.
So I talked to them.
Chief Bennett, I'm not sure if it helps. It says I can't load the whiteboard. I don't have access.
Okay, that's fine. You have to stop. That's what I see. No, Charlie, I was. I'm going to send out an email today. So I'm gonna have. No. Cooper. Well, that's good. Total beyond that. I thought I did. Yeah. That's why I did choose. Yeah. You know, so yeah. Floyd, which is more. I don't think that's right. Good facility. We'll break plans with you later.
Hey, I think we're gonna start up again, guys, so we got the empty stuff spread.
Yeah.
18.
Oh,
Ready?
I think so, I just gotta make sure. In TV land, can someone just confirm the mic is working?
I can hear you.
We did get the
Dean, can you chime in and see if somebody can hear and see? You should be able to hear and see now. You can just make sure that everyone else can hear. Yeah, can you hear me?
All right, we're gonna get started. Do our best guess, I think we got this squared away.
Well, it is what it is now.
Yeah,
Where did you
so
go?
I just wrapped up talking about our briefing, division breakout. Not a whole lot of leaders attend. We had not met the division actual yet. Talked to a division trainee who only had limited experience up there, and division actual, him being a ranger,
or the battalion for that district when that was not covered.
Did you get to our tailboard briefing in the parking lot yet?
Yeah, just started on that.
Okay, I was just gonna go back to the briefing from the camp. I was gonna touch on a couple things, so stop me if I'm repeating what you said. I got distracted.
I paraphrased a couple things off the chief said, but
So just because I know you guys are sitting out there, like what was the fire behavior forecast? What was the weather like? So, think Northern California, it's hot and dry. But even then, the IMAT got up on the stage that morning at the briefing and we had just arrived there and we're excited to say things like, things we've never seen before happen every day. He was saying these things. He said that the RH was trending to the drier side. I guess they had some rain a couple days before into the weekend and that had provided some relief, which I think hindsight maybe affected some of the approach and tactics. But the IMAT got up there that morning at briefing. It was 70 degrees in the morning already. And he said expected to get to 100, 105 degrees. RH was down to like 10%, maybe 50% with the highest points on the fire, especially the branch we run. And so they were talking about the IMET plus the fire behavior analyst talking about how receptive the fuel beds were, especially fine dead fuel moistures, which, was important to think about later. And it's all heavy timber. And so it's all stuff that you hear at a briefing, but hindsight, going back and reading it and listening to the briefing again, it was interesting because operationally they were saying, hey, this is a day of execution. This is the final piece. We've done all this planning. Today we're going to wrap it up. We're going to basically finish it on this, like basically kind of alluding in this operational period. We've been prepping for on the branch we're assigned to, branch 15, we have been prepping. We put in hand line, dozer line. We're going to do a firing operation. We're expecting clear skies, minimal winds. It might wake up around 1600. We expect it all to be very manageable. While the IMAT was saying like fuel beds are very receptive, expect if it was to get ahead, it could spot, and there could be alignment in the Mill Creek drainage because the diurnal winds come out of the southwest. And so the drainage is a key part because even on turnover, talking with some of the other strike teams, there was other resources from the zone down there from like Heartland. At turnover at breakfast, it was like, man, you got to get your eyes on this Mill Creek drainage. It's just really impressive to see. It's really big. And that was, hindsight again, really big is a relative term. And you can look at the topo map and see, yeah, there's a significant drainage there. But when you're standing at the edge of it and actually looking at it, not at a topo map, it really kind of drives home a different point on how big it is relative to the large forest that you're in. And you can't really see it because of all the timber in the way. So just to kind of set the stage, we all know that topography affects fire. We all know that when they're dry and there's topography, it's going to increase the fire behavior. And we also all know that the size of the drainage with a draw and a chimney is relative to how long your flame lengths are going to get. And that we talked about that. We talked about mitigating risks. We talked about to our crews at the tailboard safety briefing, hey, on the way out, we have a long drive. We still don't know how long exactly, but review your 10s and 18s, review the PACE acronym. So we were leaning into still a really, safety mindset, mitigating risk. And by no means did I feel that we were complacent. I'm proud of how we were kind of leaning into some of those things and talking with our crews and all our officers.
We really
were
were
engaged.
And there was a
Ready to
general
go.
sense of optimism that we were going to go to a place where we were going to get good work, stay busy throughout the 24 hours.
Yeah, and they said the firefight left on this is division, was where we were going, division 15. And so we were excited to get that assignment. Like if there was any work to do, it was going to be on our division. So that was kind of the mindset. We did our tailboard briefing with the crews. Greg already briefed you on, we talked to the trainee, it was really minimal. We'll learn more when we get out there. And that contrasted with the operations briefing said from the operations chief of the incident saying, we have this plan, we're going to execute it. Like it was a very well organized plan, but it wasn't translating down to us out on the line.
So after our tailboard briefing, we left the Tahoma camp at 0805 and just started driving and kept driving out on the highway, went through multiple fuel types till we got to Mill Creek Road where we were going to insert into drop point 23.
So here's just a big, this is the incident briefing map. You can see how big it is, the two zones, the multiple branches. I think there's 8 branches and at least 24 divisions, give or take one, plus some contingency groups that are also working. So lots of resources. We left down here at the heel of the fire, proceeded up over here along the 99, drove over the top, cut across through the black. So we were driving through an area of like fire week and trees. Everybody was acting like they've been using this route all the time. So it was just very like normal. This is the way we go. We encountered down trees along the road that we had to stop, and guys had to get out chainsaws and like clear the road, just trying to get to the first drop point to get our actual assignment. Once we got to, can you guys see the cursor? Once we got to drop point 30, we peeled off the road, and then we started to drive on the logging roads. And it took us, how long would you say it took us to get to that drop point from the time we left camp?
I would say it was about an hour to get off the highway, and then an hour, it was a 2 hour, 45 minute drive to get from 23 from camp. So I would say an hour and 45 minutes of that we're on the logging road.
The TU, Division Tahoma Union, was where we were assigned. So you can see it right where the cursor is. Can you see the cursor? Is that showing up on the?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's right there. There's our division. There's no way to get to it that's easy. So then when we zoom in, here's the operational map for our division. And we're trying to get down here to this drop point that's down here in the bottom corner. And we're traversing down these logging roads that again are very slow going. On the right, it's a little bit zoomed in, but you can see drop point 23 is our destination we're trying to get to. And the roads bifurcated, and it seemed like everybody else had been out there, and it was our first time, and it was just very confusing. There was no cell phone reception, and getting a hold of division proved to be a challenge.
The logging roads are classified by different letters. They said to take the N road, they bifurcated. Apparently one was an L road, no signage. We took an L road, but maybe added another 10, 15 minutes, even better than that.
So here's the Abenza tracking us as we drove down, and you can see all the turns didn't even follow like the map or the road that we thought you could see on there. It just turned even more. So it took us a while. So about 4 hours. By the time we got out to drop point, it was already like noon. And then going back to the fire behavior briefing, hey, the fire's going to start waking up. The smokes will start to stand up in the afternoon as it's heating. It was already 7 degrees before we left camp. There was stable air over the fire, so it kind of had the lid on it. So all those smokes that were down in the drainage were coming out, just kind of filling the lid. So there was kind of light smoke everywhere, but there wasn't any indication of, you couldn't feel any wind, and it was just kind of sitting on us. I know the officers that were there, did you guys notice any wind when we were out there?
No.
There's some slides of your engine company. You can see the smoke laying down.
From this hour and 45 minute drive up at the top, that's Highway 36, where I'm coming off there. This track line has some extra tracks that I didn't get till the next day. But this is from the first day, coming from 36 down here, and this is all the way to that eventual temporary refuge area during the burnover. Go back to it just for 1 second. This was an hour and 45 minutes drive, and we had talked, as we pulled out the freeway and just talked about which way we were to go. We had talked, clearly talked about LCES, just look out for safety zones. It's not one exists. It's not one that existed. There was signs of logging slash on the way down, small clearings, definitely not safety zones.
As we were making our way, we just kept identifying areas as potential TRAs. And we were dropping pins and basically the drop points, and there were some dozer push areas. We're like, well, this one might be a TRA. And we're kind of prioritizing. So we marked maybe 3 or 4 on the way down. But in camp with the breakout, it was like, oh yeah, you'll see a big clearing. There'll be lots of resources. Well, there was a lot of resources, but they were just wedged in like a little cul-de-sac. I mean, and it was a log jam of units trying to get out, us getting in. It by no means was a safety zone. And so we were talking about that, after debriefing with some of the other crews, they were talking about that on the way into. But I guess I just want to point out the fact that, we all know you're rolling into a fire and you put some trust in the leadership and the plan that's in place. Like, okay, they've been doing this for days. This has been the normal thing, and we're still, mitigating risk on our own. Well, there's a TRA, and even though there's no fire, no smoke, we're still doing our due diligence.
And
trying
we
to have that
have been
plan.
out there for multiple
Yeah.
rotations already, but you're still trying to do the best you can.
Yeah, if the escape route is drive back to the road, that's a 3-hour drive. So we're just kind of starting to stack these things up. But at the same time, with all the resources, I didn't ever feel like, be like, no, we're not going in because we don't have a safety zone. It seemed like everybody was leaning into this. I remember the briefing was like, hey, we're going to wrap this piece up. And I kept thinking when we get down there, there's going to be this big area that's pushed out, and it'll make sense and it'll be clear. So you keep thinking around turn, there'll be something bigger and better. But I don't know, Chief Spec, you saw the same thing, like it was, well, this could be a TRA.
Yeah, but then you drive another 30 minutes, you're like, okay.
Right, and then you would drive another 30 minutes. So just trying to kind of set the stage. But at this point, it still seemed kind of like business as usual. There was some like frustrations with comms and all that. But based on the reports and the IMET, and what we were seeing in the sky, it was like, creeping fire in small spots. They were saying there's heat in the dozer push, just smoldering mop-up work is what we're expecting. And then maybe potential to help with this firing off that they have all these big plans in preparation for. But we didn't know at what point. So at that point in time, it was exciting. We're like, oh, that'd be great to go get involved in a firing off with what we knew. Here it is kind of zoomed in so you can see, just kind of remember drop point 23, drop point 25, and then kind of just past 25, we'll use the cursor, kind of up in here is where we ended up getting line out. You want to talk about our assignments? You're already kind of going.
Yeah, we made contact again with division trainee at drop point 23. And we started to stack up units, low boys, strike teams, everybody stacking up in here. And so we're kind of waiting for an assignment for a little bit. And he told us to keep moving to the east, and we would tie in with 54 Gulf and just support improving along the road. So that was our initial assignment.
Mop up, I think, is the word he used, along the road, and to clean it up. And there'd been a little bit of slop over from the IR from the night before. And it was just very casual. We saw the Oceanside led task force, tied in with them, said hi. It was great to see familiar faces. And then we started making our way down the road to drop off units and line them out.
We made our way down the road to about 25, tied in with 54, kept the engines in place at a place where they could turn around, tied in with 54 Gulf, and yeah, we just kind of got an area of responsibility, and we were just going to spread along the road and just engage where we could to improve line along the road.
And 54 Golf is Valermo Hot Shots. They had been there for a while. We got a briefing. They seemed really squared away and kind of working this area, and we were just going to kind of spread out. And
54 Gulf was not Valermo.
Oh, but
that was the Cal Fire guys. And
oh
then,
yeah, forgive me.
so we had done this. We talked to 54 Gulf, another tailboard briefing, talked about the plan, how we were going to spread out. That was their LCS. Right now, that we didn't know anything about the clearing further to the east, so escape route was going to be back down to 23 as a TRA. This is a picture of us having that talk, and yeah, we were suited up. We were ready to go to work, and then we got another radio.
And it's the afternoon. It's getting hot. I mean, some guys were even already starting to eat. We haven't even gotten to where we're supposed to go, but we have some direction.
Yeah, we're
It's feeling good. You can see the sky in the background. There's no smoke, and right now that location on where we are is right here at drop point 23.
It's pop up, but we're going to turn gray ash into black mud, and it was going to be fun. But then we were told, Division hailed us on the radio again and told us to move further east and tie in with Valermo.
Yep. Yeah, he was like, don't get too committed. Right when we just dropped 2 engines off, we're about to drop the rest. So Paula's going down the slop that's in the green side, downhill constructing line. We dropped Oceanside off a little bit further down the road.
Yeah, we tie in with Valermo,
Or,
and
sorry, Escondido.
we tie in with Valermo, and then that's when we get our first, they request 2 engines to help them with these things that he's talking about.
Yeah, so we dropped the 2 rigs off. So Paula's there. Escondido starts working a little piece just to tie in where it's kind of a dirty burn up against the road. And that's right here, this little piece here, and there's all this dozer track. And you can see the IR dot, that's the slop over, that Paula engine, and that's their stretching line downhill. It's like, it looks tiny on there, but it's, they're stretching down.
It's a slop over, and they're working with one of the Valermo crews, and Captain Abraham is with his crew working on the south side, just holding a little corner. What would you say, like a half acre of timberland? Yeah.
And there was a little bit of
line.
line.
It was kind of a green pocket.
Yeah, some hand line was already punched into the woods, just some drift smoke. And we had a conversation, and you were really comfortable. I was too.
Yeah.
And then the strike team leader had asked us to hold up the other engines, just have them stage up at what he called the wood pile, or the chip pile, excuse me, which was a clearing down the road that we hadn't seen yet. So we got on the radio, those rigs went up to the chip pile while we were finishing our briefing with Escondido and Paula, since they were, boots on the ground at that point. And then we proceeded up and our rigs were parked at the chip pile, which is the yellow star on the map.
The chip pile is what eventually becomes our TRA.
So we pull up there, you want to talk about that? How we identified it as a TRA and
Can
just
you go
what
to
was
the next
going on.
picture of it?
So that's, okay, just to backtrack. This is not during the fire, but just Google Earth images. There's drop point 25, that first spot. You can see it was a spot that had been logged and then grown back. It gives you a kind of a little bit of idea of how big it is, and just picture, low boys, dozer tenders, multiple strike teams, task forces. It was a drop point, there was bathrooms, like that whole place was.
That was the closest clearing to the one that actually became our TRA. And it was 2 miles as the crow flies.
As we traverse down the
30-minute drive.
logging road, right? It's just about 2 miles as the crow flies to what was the chip pile where we were going to call the TRA.
And this is where 8334 is just holding this little corner right here. They're just a little bit to the west of it. And then Paula's working towards the north for that little flop over.
Right there, slop over.
You were so close. Well, he eventually saw the I walked out there to get the area of land opening. He saw that clearing, but as we're talking down there, we don't know.
So when we pulled up to this was a really big clearing. It's like, oh, this is open. This feels great. There's not trees. It's open. It's a really large space. As far as clearing, but just in relative to topography, it's right on the edge of the Mill Creek drainage.
This is just us talking to, this is Paula working towards the north. And then the next picture, this is Captain Abraham and his crew working for the south.
So this is our visibility. See, there's some drift smoke. There's some creeping fire, 1 foot flame links just down back the way where the hot shots are working. And everything seems we're getting our day going. And the other rigs are just up the road. So we continue up the road. This is a picture before the fire, just from Google Earth. So imagine Escondido is just at the top left-hand part of the screen. And then this, it's hard to see. So it looks like it's all cleared and dozer push, but it's actually logging slash. It's been chipped and then spread out, which is important later because it's all mixed with dirt. So it looks like a dozer push on fire. But when you start to get down and examine it, it's full of dry fuel, just mixed in with chips and so forth. It's stuck up. All right. Okay.
You have to leave it on that view, I think.
Oh, I thought it changed.
It did line up. I did. Okay.
So if you kind of see around the letters TRA is really more realistic to the parking area. And then it's extended beyond that where there's not a lot of vegetation. And so
Instinctually, even though there was that ground fuel there and it was kind of mixed in, it wasn't true logging flash. And instinctually looking at it, it looks like a giant clear.
yeah, it did. And so when we pulled up, there was a lot of resources that also had that same impression. We talked to some and everyone was parking there. And on the map, it's not the division break, but there was a lot of units from the neighboring division that were using this because it was kind of an open spot. So it was kind of being the unofficial division break. So there was people there that we didn't know who they were. They were for the neighboring division. There's a slide that shows it's about 700 by 800 feet is our estimation of the clearing.
And we'll give you a better picture of the topography in a minute, but this is the Mill Creek drainage is oriented this way down there. We joined the 3 engines that went up there, Oceanside, San Marcos, and the ranch engine. They had all parked good, kind of backed up as far as they could, leaving room for other areas. Looked like they had plenty of room around them. And then we started to have conversations with them. The Oceanside rig got a Valermo, and one of the Valermo superintendents came over and asked them if they could come help support, just putting out little creeping ground fires on the edge of the area. And we met with the Valermo hotshot crew with a Shasta strike team leader. I think it was 52, Charlie.
And the division training.
And the division training, and we just started talking about the area, what the plan was. Still, we weren't getting a lot of information on the plan. But instincts, like the senses, that we started to get uncomfortable with just for the lack of a plan. Luke and I had mentioned that we were going to consider pulling all our units out and moving to the west.
If there was fire behavior that changed, we're going to pull our units out. And
It hadn't changed yet. We had walked out, we saw the drainage. You can see the drainage on that topo map here. It was a hard thing to articulate, but it was just a plan that we were going to move everything to the west. And the Palermo hotshot superintendent, 52 Golf, who's from Shasta, they had a little bit of cred with us being from the timber, and the division trainee. They all reiterated that this TRA was huge.
so Greg's being modest. I'm just going to say, so the Palermo hotshots were, yeah, we're working on this. Greg went up and said, hey, if fire starts coming up out of this drainage, we're going to pull our guys. And he proceeded to go, really? Like, this is fine. We got this. And so Greg and I had a conversation after that, like, man, he's a hotshot. He's been up here. But at the same time, I watched Greg, he's a trainee, and I'm right there. And the right guy didn't hesitate. He's like, nope, that's what we're going to do. If fire comes up here, we're going to pull our guys out of here. He was like, okay. But there was that kind of element of like peer pressure, like, oh, guys, there's nothing going on. So, you know, in hindsight, it was like, no, we were leaning into it being safety minded. And right before that, we had a conversation. The other two rigs, Rancho and San Marcos, were just parked there. And because we had been told, don't get too committed because we might go to the neighboring division to maybe help in a firing off that might happen. So we had guys kind of engaged, but don't get too engaged. So we were talking about the size of the TRA and the amount of units there. And so we had asked Captain Kupek to go over and talk to the dozer operator who was actively working to kind of push some of the chip around and say, hey, can you make this area bigger? Can you improve this? Because there's a lot of stuff here. So Kupek had that conversation.
He did a great.
And that was before any fire behavior change.
He went right over there, and as soon as Dan talked to that dozer operator, that guy just started tracking over and started making. He understood the intent, and he started making the area better.
So
it ended up making a difference.
We've kind of set the stage now. I pieced together a bunch of videos. And since we have so much time, a bunch of them, a lot of them are in the same frame of time, but they're different perspectives from different apparatus. So after the incident, I got some from the safety officer, from the dozer tender, the heavy equipment boss, from our engine captains and stuff their crew took. So we're going to bounce around a little bit and see some, just to give you guys what it looks like. And then I'll pause here and there and we'll talk about some things just to note in the video. So this one is just kind of like when we first pulled up what the fire behavior looked like, and it was starting to wake up and the chip was kind of burning, but it was still really mellow. So just kind of set the scene.
A lot of these videos were tracked down.
You can see, it'll pan a little bit, you can see the size of the. So in contrast to the heavy timber, when there's no big trees, it looks, hey, this is clear. But if you notice, I mean, there's a lot of chip here. Some of it had dozer pushovers covered with dirt. And hindsight, it's like, oh, there's a lot of fuel in this clear. All right, is it still following me? It is. Okay. So the fire behavior started to wake up. We started hearing chatter on the radio that back up the road, the fire was starting to wake up back where we had dropped off Escondido and Paula. So hearing this chatter, we talked with our guys. We had the dozer improving the area. Oceanside's working with the Palermo hotshots. Everything seems good. So we said, hey, we're going to just bounce back down and talk, make sure those guys are okay because it sounds like the fire's waking up. Just to be proactive, I called Paula because they were on the green side, hailed them on the radio, said, hey, can you come up, walk back up to the road? Because I knew they were downhill and I didn't know how far. So just said, hey, just come back up the road, meet us at your engine. And Cap Prez was like, okay, you sure? Like, we're going to, yeah, meet us back at the rig. We'll just come. So we just, you know, I'm proud of the fact I feel like we were pretty safety minded at that point and kind of yeah, come back up. Like, even though it's not looking, I'm hearing chatter on the radio. So they came back up. We walked down. While we're down there talking to him, I talked with Captain Abraham, and he's like, yeah, we're good. He came back to the rig. Hasn't really changed. I hear that on the radio, but it's not really changing. I'm totally comfortable. We talked about risk mitigation and, you know, being back to the rig and stay up on comms. And then the chatter started to pick up on the radio again back at the TRA, or what we get identified as a TRA. And we heard engineer off Oceanside's rig just yell. You could hear some inflection in the voice, get back to the rig, get back to the rig.
We're 50 to 100 yards away, 100 yards
Yeah,
probably.
just down.
Can't, no change in our condition. No real change in our condition that we can see, just the radio.
So here's a video taken from the one of the firefighters off the Rancho Santa Fe rig. The fire starts to change and they're just walking back to their. Yeah, let's go. That is big. I got it. Let's get out of here.
Like, it was just, getting out of there would have been the appropriate thing, but you can see everybody's hurt that front. We'll talk about that more later.
So you can hear some radio chatter starting to pick up in the background. Fire's waking up. There's a lot of resources there. Everybody's walking back to their rigs. No one's running. It's like, whoa, it just kind of woke up. But you could see there was like flame links already coming out from where that drainage is. It were significant. I mean, they were like 50 feet right there for a second. So everybody kind of gets back in the rig, and the thought was, oh, we're going to all leave. And so we're hearing the chatter, and we're driving up the road at this point to get back to where our rigs are. Now, Oceanside was down a hand line right off the edge. And so they got the brunt of that, the flames that we just saw, and had to run back to their rigs. And Captain Baker described having to hold his breath and just was really impressed by how quickly it just changed and seemed to come out of nowhere. So it's changing really quick. It was literally in the matter of like 1, maybe 2 minutes. It went from that creeping fire with the dozer to what you just saw here, and then it progresses. Now we're going to go back a little bit. When the chatter starting to pick up, I have a video from the safety officer who is hearing it, and he's driving that direction also. So we're driving to check on our guys, and the safety officer is driving from the division on the opposite side. So he's further down the road than us.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's a pretty good take on and whatever's in there. And we put stuff on, so we'll be able to come back around. And then L line to get re-engaged on stuff. Yeah, it sounds like they're in a good spot. I just want to be able to firefight when this thing comes up and out, try to get it kind of in this tabletop area and see what we're going to do. Because we do have a bunch of good lines in there. We're just going to need a staff one. I don't know. This one is not doing good.
Okay, so here, hey, once it's going to come in, once it hits kind of up and out, and then we'll engage. The kind of thought was, and I had the same thought, oh, it's like waking up. It's going to come through like a wave, and then we'll be in our TRA, and then we'll either engage or drive back down the road if it's worse. If it's not, feasible to engage the fire. This next video is the same safety officer pulling up to the TRA or chip fire.
Go ahead. I'm just up the road from where you're talking. We're in a nice big line spot. I got the point some engine protection line. We're gonna try to stay here. Put a bump it down. Copy. Yep, it's cranking right here. So it's TRA. Or a Gerbo, 631.
And that's the Guillermo hot shots that are right there next to us.
Yeah, go ahead. Make a pretty good push above you, just making sure everybody's in here. Yeah, affirmative. Just let me know if I need to look backwards, or come up.
Well, this sucks.
Negative, what they call it, the brain room. It's I think it's a really tricky way. It's pulling out of the south pretty hard, pretty high above it. It shoots down. Now let's get everybody that's still down, go back up there. Yeah, I copy, and the DFI is probably 3,000 feet below the issues. I got it pretty far down there.
Okay, did you guys catch that piece of traffic? So this video is about the same time the Rancho ones are getting back in their rigs. When I look at the times, they got in their rigs, and then you see the fire behavior change over the course of 2 minutes. And I can look at the timestamp. It went from clear skies to the visibility here with fire wheels coming up. And they communicated. He's communicating with somebody down the road that has eyes that, hey, it looks like a big spot about 300 yards down the drainage.
And still almost nothing where you were, right? Or what was the weather like? where you were?
Yeah, I don't have a reference of timeline from where you guys were and where we were, but it did eventually start to change. If we had never left the spot we were in, we actually would have been fine. Looking at it after the fire blew through and everything, which is crazy because it was so close to where you were, but the fire drove it right into that TRA. Right. But yeah, it started to get a little darker and then eventually some spots.
So the next video I'm going to play, it's a little, it goes back a little bit, but it starts, you can see all the rigs is starting to stack up. So one of the takeaways, and we'll touch on it again, is like, yeah, you go through and you plan on a TRA, but for me, it was a big profound one. It's who else is also thinking of that for their TRA?
We accounted for the for the guys that are in division. Where I mean, we didn't do an accounting, but on some level, we considered the variable guys, 54 golf guys, the 52 Charlie guys, the people we had interaction with on our part of the division, not really taking into account that there were 3 pages of resources on Division Whiskey, which was right next door.
That we're also driving to the same little spot that we were sitting in. So our guys got in the rigs, they're backed up. Okay, we're going to get out of here. You even heard the 609 crew. Yeah, we're going to get out of here. That's what everybody thought. We pulled up, had eyes on our crews. We're like, okay, we want to get accountability. We got there. We could see our engines. Everybody got in the rigs. Great. We're gonna turn around and lead everybody out. But you see the conditions were changing really quick. That last video, I don't know if you noticed at the end, you can see fire blowing across what was the road as the units are coming in. And so basically we're in this clearing and the fire flame lengths were so long, they basically were laying down and basically like bookends closing both sides of the road with the area. So there was no way to leave either way once all the units got to the little TRA spot. Initially we had hoped to leave, but our rigs had backed in, they'd done a great job, but all the other rigs just came in and filled that space when they came from the neighboring division. And so now the Rancho and San Marcos rig were blocked with rigs just parked right in front of them at their buffer. And so at that point, I'll play the video in a second, but I had comms, division was right there next to us. The safety officer, the guy that said, oh, this is great. He was in the truck right next to us. There was also a water tender up there, a dozer tender, 2 bulldozers working, Shasta strike team, the Palermo hot shots, and then other resources just kind of peeling off of the neighboring division. So it just gridlocked and nobody could go anywhere. And then, we were communicating with each other. When I was talking to division, we got accountability. So I was able to, I got visual accountability for our 3 engines there, got the other 2 rigs on the radio. We gave them direction to go back to drop point 25. We meet them there. Division was working on, there was comms for if there was available air resources. They were up and flying, but they couldn't. By this time, the column was building, and they said they couldn't do anything. And the radio was full. The division actual and division training were all over the radio. We were trying to talk to our guys. We actually used travel channels to communicate. Like, hey, move your rig up a little bit. Like, there's some fire right behind you, or maybe fire under you. And we were just working through those challenges. But I will say, everybody kept a level head on the radio, which really helped. And nobody ran into each other. With all these rigs, we were inches apart, kind of moving, and the division came up and said, hey, you guys are farthest over there, turn around and lead us out. And I came back on the radio, said, I can turn around and move over, but I'm not going to leave until my rigs are clear and I can see that they have a clear path to travel. So I moved over and I was like, if you want to lead them out, go ahead, but I'm going to wait till my rigs can get out. And that was our 3 that were up there, because they were like 4 rigs deep, and I wasn't going to leave until I could see them actually rolling out. We had that conversation. We tried to move around. I got my rig turned around and I moved over. And by the time that path was created for the trucks, there was fire across the road. No one was going anywhere. So I'm going to play this one and show some of the traffic.
It was really unclear what the condition of our egress was going to be.
I have a question. You said that division was there, and I know you said they were both division actual and the training around the radio.
Yes.
But when you say division was there talking with you, was it the division? Or was
The
it
division, he was in a pickup truck. I had never met him, didn't know. And actually, I didn't know we were talking on the radio. I didn't even know he was the guy in the truck next to me. Because
You said it in the beginning, he wasn't present much.
Yeah, because we had only interacted with the trainee. The division was busy. I think he was over on the neighboring division getting ready for this plan. And this was his own dirt.
This was the
his
first
unit.
time we saw
Yeah.
in the TRA during the significant fire danger.
When we did finally meet and we were piecing all together and we had talked about communicating on the radio for accountability, I was like, oh, you were the guy in the truck right next to me. Like, we could have rolled our windows down, but we didn't even know it because we hadn't met, didn't know, there was no identifiers on his truck. It was just a CAL FIRE truck. And so it's interesting, but I mean, I had comms with division and I knew he was up there somewhere based on the picture he was painting. Cause he's like, yeah, we're here. We're in a good spot. We're hunkered down. We're going to just TRA here and write this thing out. I've got accountability. And he was communicating with communications and some of the other, all the resources. The radio was full.
He did a good job getting, I mean, everything aside, his choice not to come to briefing and us not getting away with the chat, he did a good job there getting accountability. At one point, I got out of the rig real quick just to get it better. It was, at this point, it was still tenable with your PPE on, your shroud on, it was still tenable for a couple minutes. And we'll talk.
It was hot and windy and uncomfortable, but we just kept thinking it was going to blow through and then be done. And everybody was in what seemed like a good spot. I'm going to mute the audio on this one, just out of discretion for the guys in the cabin.
Making your way back up.
So you can see the road kind of cut off by the fire. That's what it looked like on both sides.
They had just run. Luke and I didn't know this stuff. Luke and I had accountability for them at this point.
This is division. We're on the other side of division right over here. And then all that fire in those trees is on the green side. So it's now gone over the TRA and the trees are just like auto igniting. The giant timber is just like all of a sudden there's fire running up and you can see the winds.
We could see it working up the ladder fuels next to where we were parked, but we weren't worried about that. It was just
See the trees.
thick timber.
The water tender started turning on its sweeps and was like putting out bushes, just sitting there parked. That was pretty effective. So you can see everybody's wedged in. All the cars are trying to move.
The dozer that Captain Puhat spoke to is still working. He's still working the backside of where those engines are parked and making that area better. Never stopped working. We talked to that gentleman later on and just expressed our appreciation.
Was he a private or a state?
He was,
He was
the
private.
private.
He was private. He was an absolute rock star.
He was amazing. Yeah,
And
he
then
was a country boy, but he just kept working. It wasn't his first rodeo. The other dozer up there was a state resource or contract county.
They partnered him up, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about him a little bit.
So this is just another perspective. It goes back and it's some of the same time frames. You might see some of the same radio traffic, but it's just interesting seeing the different perspectives, I think.
Smoke over the farm.
So back to where the guys are starting to walk back.
There.
There's the bulldozer.
146 on dozer. Yeah, for another second. And you guys fell. If you blow that out that backside, you gotta get fuel break there, so. That got me. 25, 40.
I got room for white meat. I got room for one. The side.
You should be good right here.
There's a ledge over there. I don't know if you can see it. I really got about 100 feet of visual. So if you got far back in, we're not going to stop it. And just see if I see anything catching off, because I guarantee you there's something.
Let me know if anything.
Yeah, let's get accountability of all our guys. I copy.
Not too worried about that.
Palmer, 2346, those are 2346. On those.
Go ahead.
Make sure you're in a good spot. But you can get back this way.
I'm all right for a moment.
This traffic is on the
There's
dozer.
my location,
So they're saying, are you up on dozer? And I think this is
extreme
the
fire
end of the
behavior,
point of view.
30, 40 miles per wind with wind swirls. More light and over dozer and all. Got it.
Moved in.
So you can see, there was one of the crews from the Palermo Hot Shots, and you heard the traffic, hey, clear the road, clear the road. Everyone's starting to kind of bottleneck right there. And everybody's in their cab frustrated that there's people in their way and trucks are parked, and everybody had that same sentiment. You know, everybody's in everybody's way.
We're starting to get a sense of the duration of this a little bit. That's what struck us the most. I mean, we've all found ourselves in a spot, brush fires, where we've taken TRAs and take some heat, take some smoke, and then it's gone, and you re-engage. And this was not like that. This was just convection coming out of a giant Mill Creek drainage, and it was still coming. And that's what was.
We had enough time to talk about it in the cab. Like, shouldn't it be over?
Oh yeah, we.
Still going.
Oh, we were having conversations. We were talking about. We were talking about a lot of things, and I think from the timestamp, from the just looking at people's pictures, I didn't take any, but looking at other people's pictures, I think we timestamped it 26 minutes or something. Was it?
I think in total, when the fire started to wake up.
Yeah.
But most of these videos were taken at 1:52, which is when everybody turned their phones on, because everybody was excited. No one was like worried yet. Everybody wanted to take the video footage of the fire behavior. And then by 1:54, everyone was congested in that spot. I got notes on the timestamp. Yeah. So I've got another one at 1:55. It's going to show more behavior when everyone's in their rigs. So the next thing that happened, I got one more with the traffic. Let's see. So everybody's in their rigs at this point. You can see it's just like a traffic jam right there. They're coming in. Everything's burning around us. Rigs are trying to move around, so it's just more of that same.
2 of your engines were in the TRA? Or
Three of them.
And then 2 were.
There's our truck right there.
They request, and they had, at this time, we had talked them on the radio and just advised them to keep moving further west.
You see, we're facing to the right side of the screen because we had just driven up and everyone else was trying to get out. And so we were kind of right there, got to the side, and then we were trying to do a 180 in this congestion so that we could lead crews out once our rigs were free. So this one is taken from our cab. I shot this one, and I'm just kind of like holding this and we're talking. Didn't take a lot of video because we were busy. There you can see our rigs. So you can see, and this was a takeaway for us, is when you're parking and you're going to stage and you need that quick getaway. Our rigs did a great job. They backed in so they could get out, but they were being polite, wanted to make room for everybody else because there are a lot of resources. So they parked 2 deep. So Rancho Santa Fe was behind San Marcos with berms on the side. And so you can see that here in the picture. This is San Marcos's engine. Rancho Santa Fe is back in the corner. This one over here on the far side is one of the Shasta strike team. This rig right here, I think, is the safety. At that point, you can go over there, and then the one on the far right, where the cursor is Oceanside Brush 217. So that's kind of like the bookends of that parking area, and there's a picture of the chip berm is kind of all around the back that the bulldozer is working to improve. So it's really tight. They can't back up. All they can do is go forward from this spot. Okay, so does everybody have kind of a good understanding of where the rigs are? More or less. This is the bulldozer. Shot from the Rancho Santa Fe engine. And this guy just kept going. Whenever else stopped, through his ability, the guy kept driving. His improvements, I think, helped make the TRA tenable while we were there. I mean, he was pushing it out, making it bigger. Now, this video is taken from the Rancho Santa Fe engine once everybody's inside, and you can really see we're looking at the green side and their back is to the drainage, just for orientation.
That's your truck in the picture?
This is San Marcos rigs parked right in front of them.
The pickup, with the pickup right there?
Yes, yeah. On the bottom left is us. And then the water tender's right behind me. And they put that bushes out right next to, I thought my window was going to fail, and then the water tender opened their sweeps. It's kind of nice. But you can see the torching and the trees, the timber is not just like the understory. Not on it. Trees are. that voice you're hearing is Luke, who's the division actually. So he's working through, he had a level head, cool demeanor, and was just trying to organize things. So now, I know it's a lot of videos, but like, I think that I found the different perspectives to be helpful and just kind of paint a picture of what's going on. The next one is taken, it's kind of a little bit longer, and I think it's a heavy equipment boss, but it shows some good shots of the opening and some of the fire behavior. It's a little bit longer, but there's some good radio traffic. I am gonna mute it at one point. And that's because the dozer operator that was injured had minor burns, sent it to me and asked that I not share his audio. He was emotional and worked up on the radio.
We'll talk a little bit about the injured dozer. We'll explain that a little more. This was not the private dozer who was working on that. This was
We're back in time, kind of when it's first starting.
Right here, 18 Lima, 2346 on dozer.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna track down this road and see if I see anything catching off, because I guarantee you there's something.
Yeah, let's just hold in place right now. I want to get accountability of all of our guys.
I copy. Great. Dozer, Crawford, 2346, dozer, 2346, on dozer. Go ahead. Make sure you're in a good spot.
46, get back this way now.
So he's driving now.
I copy. Ready? 40 yards. Good. I'll bring everybody in and switch you back to the end. Copy. Do you want to check the line, guys? I'll cover this one. Good, Charlie. How you doing?
What's good about this video too is it shows when he looks out to the left-hand side, that's that clearing on fire.
This is the craziest fire behavior I've
That's all
ever
the chip
fucking
and the
seen.
wood. It's so there's the clearing. That's the area surrounding like the larger TRA area.
That's a 700 by 800.
Another 46, find wherever you can get off.
The TRA itself was like dozer pushed inside that, but it gave us this elevated comfort level because there was no trees.
I would say go for 26. I got this little spot right here to the right. But I want to cover those are visual reload. I got it. They're kind of good. You can tap it, but they can set a button. I just want to see what's over here.
Is he in the TRA right now, or is he waiting for that to pass to get to the TRA?
He's on the road. I think he's in that traffic jam right where all the other rigs are parked. That's my best guess from looking at this. And then the bulldozers are working and you hear the one guy say, I need a fire extinguisher. So that was the person that ended up getting, was identified as a burn victim. And yeah, so this is where it starts to transition. Let me finish this video first and then we'll go into that part. I'm going to turn the audio back on.
Copy that. All right, those are 2346. I think my truck's not moving anymore.
trying to find a spot. There's a moment in there where he's looking out the window and he just says, "This is the craziest fire." He's just talking to himself. "This is the craziest fire we've ever seen." He did say that. So what's interesting is you hear some of the radio traffic. It's really helpful, and I've been watching a bunch of times, but you hear some common radio traffic in some, and then you hear different radio traffic in others. And so I realized, so we were scanning neighboring divisions and our division. So our division with the 3 pages of resources had 1 command and 1 TAC channel. And so the TAC channel was really full. But we were still monitoring the neighboring division. So we were hearing in our cab all this. It was just like chaos on the radio. But I'm noticing, watching some of the videos, you don't hear all that same scan traffic. Like the dozer guys, I'm just hearing them up on their dozer TAC. So it's something to be mindful and take away. And we talked about it too. It's like a lot of strike team leaders, I'm pretty sure everybody in here monitors neighboring divisions, but to remind your firefighters to do it too, because it's easy for the crews to just, it's so much noise. I'm going to turn that down or turn off scan, and I'll just talk to the 1 channel I need because I'm just going to talk to my captain. And I bring it up because after the fact, we were talking to guys, there was a lot of questions. Why wasn't anybody talk about this? Why didn't anybody ask this? And it's like, well, they did. Didn't hear it on the radio. They did ask for air support. We did to get accountability of the division. We did do X, Y, and Z. And so the takeaway was, oh, maybe some of the guys weren't listening to all the channels. So obviously we have a 4 channel we always scan, but it's a good idea for firefighters, engineers, and captains to be scanning those neighboring divisions because it helped us with our situational awareness, who was who and who was where, because we hadn't met these resources that we ended up kind of working with when we were in that tight spot. Do you want to talk about the burn patient in Oceanside?
Yeah, you guys heard the dozer operator safety extinguisher. I think division made contact with him and then had a conversation with us at Brush 217. Brush 217 went to assist and brought him to division's truck or safety's truck.
Yeah, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit. The dozer tender first was saying he needed a fire extinguisher. He didn't give us an identifier. He didn't see where he needed it. He just kept saying, "I need a fire extinguisher." So nobody knew who it was. Later, we found out it was the dozer operator. I think he was trying to hail his dozer tender to bring him one. But he was on the command channel. I think he opened, my understanding is, and I talked with him briefly, he had the door open. I think Embercast came in and caught some of the items inside his enclosed cab on fire. So he needed the fire extinguisher put out because there was burnt sack lunch at the bottom, basically. And so there was paper in the back.
This was the first time the radio traffic started to escalate, and there was a little loss of self-possession.
So he was keyed up. There was having trouble, but we didn't really know who it was, where it was. Then he got out of his truck and panicked and started running and looking for open doors because he was right next to us. The first one he came to was a safety officer, and he jumped in the safety officer's truck and was hysterical, screaming and saying he was burned. Safety radioed. Safety's parked here. Division's parked here, and we're parked here. He radios division. Division hails us and goes, "Hey, 48 Charlie, you guys are ALS, right?" He's checking because we haven't even been face to face yet. "Yes, we are ALS. Okay, can you have a unit look at this? I have a potential burn victim inside the safety's car right next to you." "Okay, copy that." So Brush 217 was right there. So we talked to Captain Baker. He said, "Yep, they had jumped in, so it worked out. They had all their gear. They had the red gear still on sitting in their rig. They jumped out in the middle of this and then went to go assess the potential burn victim." Chief O'Gorman also got out to go check on them, and I stayed in the cab to just maintain the comms piece. Because once you got out, it was really windy. When we opened the door, and the cab would fill with embers, firewalls coming through. So Oceanside.
It was warm, smoky.
It was hot.
It was hot.
Hot air.
It was not different than just where we were beneath the main column that was coming up out of Mill Creek. It was not different than situations that, if there was a job long enough, you found yourself in the brush.
It still felt reasonable for Oceanside to get out, and then Greg got out too.
Yeah.
So he was in the same environment.
It was not different than that, but it was still just striking that it was continuing to go.
So Captain Baker and his crew walked over right next to them, and they were trying to assess the patient. He wouldn't get out of the truck, and he was inconsolable. So they basically said, "You need to decide. You're going to come with us or stay here." Couldn't really answer, so they left him there. They got back in their cab, and then we talked with safety on the radio, and he said, "I'll just drive him out." And the guy just remained inconsolable is the description I used. Unknown severity of injuries, but at that point, we just got back in our trucks. He was breathing and yelling. And so this video is Oceanside getting back in their rig right after that.
So Luke, this is your contract dozer operator now?
No, this is the fire.
Contract county or private?
No, this is a fire-based dozer operator.
I think San Mateo County.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the contract county?
Yeah.
Yes.
Contract, yeah.
All right. But he ended up not having injuries. I'll just jump ahead. He was life flighted and flown. He had some minor, I don't even know if they were second degree.
I think Chief Bender probably has
Yeah.
the best picture of what the final, what is,
His injuries. the extent.
injuries were.
Yeah, it wasn't, so jumping ahead, I had a conversation with safety, the team safety.
Chief Pender's on the same team, so we had a
I'm a
liaison.
liaison officer for Team 4. And after the fact, this is a couple days later, so this is not during the event. Chief Barron contacted me asking what the status is. I wasn't even aware of all of this that occurred. This is all after the fact. So I went to the safety and asked about what is the team, what safety planning on doing in response to this. And I won't bore you with the full conversation, but, and I want to wait till you guys are done with that. But in terms of the injury, it came in as significant. It ended up not being significant, in line with what you guys are talking about right now. He didn't meet OSHA standards. He was flown. It was precautionary. Didn't end up having that severe of injury. So.
And the official stats on CAL FIRE's website is 0 injuries.
Right, and there's some, just like when we talk about containment percentages, they're not going to list every major, they're not going to list when there's bee sting. They're not going to list, all these things. There has to be some. So for the 209, they use OSHA reportable criteria.
Yeah.
So he didn't meet OSHA criteria for injury, therefore.
Yep.
Yes. There's a ton of injuries on everybody, little stuff, twisted ankles, but stuff, but it's not listed as.
But for as minor as this ended up being for our young guys listening to what's happening on the radio, it sounded pretty serious.
Right. Everybody thought he had like severe burns and was getting life flighted and was in danger of maybe losing
It's a
his
fog
life.
of war.
Yeah. So Oceanside, it's like you need to make a decision. And if you're not coming with us, we're getting back in our work. Baker, basically, to paraphrase. If we can play this one. So they just jump back in. I pause it there because you can see, I wanted you to see the ground next to them right there. This is what they ended up having sustained damage on their engine. And it's because they were exposed on that side to all the radiant heat from the fine dead fuels that were burning in that mix of, chip and dirt right next to them. And then they also had the convective heat coming up out of the drainage. So that persistent heat on the side of their rig, even though they were moving and shimming around, ended up causing about $15,000 worth of damage that the incident occurred. And it just kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't obvious at first that they had damage. We had to kind of we didn't even notice it until like a couple of looks. It was like, oh wait, the plastic is a little bit out.
We suspect.
It wasn't
We
severe.
suspected
Yeah.
something.
The rig wasn't like on fire.
Yeah.
But things that were plastic were like melted or augmented a little bit. But that's what was right next to them, and they were looking out the windows. Okay, so now this video is everyone's back in the rigs. Visibility is still poor, but there's not fire blowing across the roads. And so now we're communicating with division actual of like, hey, let's try and leave again. I'm turned around. The rigs have kind of moved, so people have a little bit room to get out. And so division comes up again. It goes, hey, you're in position now. I've already started. Why don't you drive down that road that there's no visibility and see if it's okay, to paraphrase. At this point, we're like, we have to do something. There's not fire across the road. It's just poor visibility. So we start to drive down the road to see if there's a clear path for everyone to leave. And that's our truck into the road. I'm going to get turned around. Then we go to leave.
It was a little bit of leap of faith leaving. Luke did a great job driving. Visibility was
We were going slow.
as close to zero as you could get and still inch forward. Remarkably, after 50 yards, just 100 yards at most, just to get back to where 8334 had previously been, just opened up and
It was like someone flipping a light switch on and it was
Sure,
like
no
blue
wind on.
skies.
yeah.
And it was like, wow, like we just walked through a partition. So now we
Of
got
course,
this.
we got back on the radio and told everybody to come on down.
Yeah, and then everybody was able to drive out and we had a clear path. So this will kind of show why it looked like a partition. You can kind of see, this is from the far side, the neighboring division looking back. And so now all those fuels, the convective heat column, it's all kind of come together. It's stood up a column and now it's starting to twist and do that vortex. And there's, again, back to the scale of the drainage. And we knew it was big, we talk about it, but you know, in hindsight, the amount of fuel that was down there and how big it was and the convective heat coming up, how it was all just coming together. It wasn't in alignment with wind, but by now it was pulling its own wind and generating it. And then, you know, all the heat going up through what we now, you know, look back, there's a big draw right up to the top of the edge where we are. And there's a bowl. So I'll play this video for you. And you can tell, so we're all basically sitting inside that. It's, So with this, it's like, oh, you just drive out and you're out. But at the time when we're sitting in there, it just seemed like the whole canyon had moved and went who knows how far. And remember, there had been fire across the road. But now that those flame links on the way we came in weren't there, it was just the visibility. So we made our way out. And then everyone was able to drive down to drop point 23. And then we went further back up the road pretty far, like 2 hours, where we ended up meeting up with the task force from Oceanside. And we all just kind of drove out. A couple other things we were dealing with. So the Oceanside engine was damaged from that radiant heat, Rush 217, but Rancho Santa Fe was on the other bookend. So the other one back in the far corner and getting that same heat on their side. And it actually burned in and affected one of the brake lines. So their low air alarm started going off and their air brakes started, their tank started to leak. And so they had to kind of nurse that to get it out. So we had some communication with them. They were, you know, trying to high idle. They got out and tried to do like a field comparison tape, but we were able to nurse them last. So all the units, once we said it was clear, they all came and then we waited. We went back and then met up to 609. And as they kind of crept along, we all made it out to the safe zone. And we had accountability for everybody and went back to the other drop point.
Yeah. And we
Just to
were,
add some more stress, the alarms going off in the cab.
yeah,
with those guys,
yeah.
maybe stopping their rig, but they were able to mitigate that and troubleshoot.
And like I said, once we made it out of that area, we were surprised at how much, as we moved north and west, how much of the road had helped. We just, when you're in it, you just assumed that this had crossed everywhere.
We thought it had been just off to the races and gone. Now it eventually did do that. So this side-by-side comparison is the two operations, the maps from the day we were there to the next operational briefing map after a 24-hour cycle, how much of the forest it consumed after it flared up there. So initially it was just that in that swirling vortex where we were, and we retreated out. They pulled all resources off both divisions. Everyone went back. We just staged for a few hours. We were able to kind of do a hot wash with all the crews just to, you know, hey, is everybody okay? Give everybody a chance to talk about their perspectives. You know, we just all tied in with each other. It was great seeing the other North County resources there. And at the time we didn't know it, but it started kind of sinking in then of some of the, you know, whoa, this was a big, you know, we were leaving, it's like, okay, everybody's okay. We have accountability. Everybody kept a level head. Then when we got part we were staging, it was like, oh, this was it was good that the guys could see their buddies and kind of just talk and hash it out. And you could see that kind of just helped the overall morale of the strike team, I'd say. So if you look here, you can see each one of these boxes, I think it's 2 square miles. Is it 1 or 2 square miles? 1 square mile. And so you can see on the bottom left, the star again is where we're situated. That's prior to the event. And then after it, I'm going to put the cursor right at the same spot. It went up well over that dozer line that they had planned on holding it on, and it ran up the drainage and consumed several acres. And that was just that one next operational period.
Even after egressing back, everybody came back up to close to Highway 38 or 36, I can't remember right now. And we're all staged up there off the fire line. We're talking with different resources. Nobody knew how many acres it ate up. I mean, there were people saying that it went 100,000 acres, which of course turned out not to be
Yeah,
true.
there was rumors flying all over how, because the column was so significant.
Right.
So at this point, we thought there was a significant injury. We had been through this thing, so we were talking about, oh, they're probably going to pull us off, interview, screen sheet, all this stuff. And so it didn't go that way. We didn't have the information on the potential patient, but I thought, oh yeah, we have rigs damaged, somebody was injured, not knowing that he wasn't actually injured. And then our rigs were still in service. They weren't out of service. They were just kind of like toasted on the side a little bit. So after staging for like 3 hours, we then got direction to huddle up with the division again. So now we actually had a face-to-face. Yeah, trainee.
We're back to training.
Actual was there too, right? Wasn't he? Or was it just, it was just trainee? It was actual. Yeah, it was Luke. And then we were there with, yep, Wes McGee. Yeah. So we met up with you guys, and then they proceeded to say, okay, here's the plan. Like nothing, like, how are you guys? Everybody okay? It was just like, okay, here's the plan. We're going to go back and essentially to that same spot.
We're going to re-engage with hose line downhill.
Pushing a new dozer line down that.
And it's nighttime by now. It's dark. And they're like, we're gonna plumb hose down right on the edge of the dirty burn and hold it here tonight. And I just remember looking at them, and I'm thinking through my mind, like you were saying, like, okay, there's the reversal, the refusal. This doesn't work. Like, there's no way this is safe. And so I just kind of started formulating my thoughts. And he goes, oh yeah, you guys don't want to get burned over again.
Well, we started asking questions.
Yeah.
Because he was gonna send you right back.
He was gonna send, so we started asking. We looked at each other. We knew we were gonna decline that assignment anyway, if it's just based on how this was coming out. But we started asking questions. Where's our lookouts? There'll be people around.
Is there any improved safety?
Yeah, I had this building push out any safety zones, and we just started firing questions at them. And I think that's what he did.
Then he turned to us and goes, well, they probably should do that. So
Yeah.
how about you guys go do that with this other Charlie team? And Wes and I kind of like, well, we'll drive out there and see. And on our drive out, all we could hear on the radio is, I think we're going to do this, and it probably will hold, and it might do this, and yeah, I'm pretty sure this might work. And then we heard the dozer operator, hey, I got black on the right. He's pushing down that hill, that slope, down to that canyon. And I got green on the left, and I see fire on my left. I'm like, it's already jumped. And they, hey, put it down. Well, we don't have any T's. We don't have any inch line. Well, just plumb it down anyway. Like, this is.
And after the fire, yeah. So
I'm sorry.
And we had a conversation. I was like, I was shocked when he just said, oh, okay, we won't have you do it. And then he just looked right at Jess. Oh, you guys will do it. And that was a low point for me on like the confidence in what was going on. That night, nobody did anything. We all just sat out there. Nobody got engaged.
The other Charlie team tried to engage because that strike team later came to West and I was like, hey, we're going to go push stuff down. We're like, we're going to go park over there. And if division needs to know where we are, we're over there and he can come talk to us and give us more.
And the takeaway
They never
was,
found us.
it's a good thing no one was there because the fire blew up at night. So going back to the IMET briefing in the morning, they said, hey, this fire is trending towards being warmer and drier. There's going to be no recovery at night. It hasn't happened yet. The rain stuff's done. There's going to be no recovery at night. So expect the burning period to be 24 hours. So you don't have that relief. And that was this night when they were going to have us go down. So, and then on the right-hand side of the screen for everyone at TV Land, you could see the results of that because it consumed many more boxes moving along the top edge of the drainage and in the drainage and well over the edge of the drainage into the tabletop. which is, this is just a massive area under the division, Tehama Union letters. So it's good no one was in there. So that was that first operational period. Here is how it continued to progress.
This is day after day, next day in camp. Of course, we had a busy day, ground support, comp claims. We followed up with the unit of behavioral health, just a busy day.
Yeah.
But
look how much more it ate. This is back here, our first op period, they're like, hey, this is the last piece, we're gonna get it done.
Yeah.
Today is a day of engagement and we're gonna wrap it up. And it,
we're watching from camp and cap out to the stratosphere the next day.
yeah. And here in Chatter, you know, it was like I guess the next day it was a similar thing. Everybody had to retreat back. People were in a bad spot. It did the exact same thing the next day and they had people in there. So it was just something to be mindful of for all of you guys. I think the big takeaway is like, look at the topo maps. And I looked at the topo maps, but like let it absorb the scale relative to what's going on. Because we knew there was a drainage. We knew the fire behavior in the drainage was what was predicted. And that's where we were. But we still, everyone was caught off guard on that hill. Division, safety, the hot shots on how quickly the fire behavior intensified and how intense it got. Like nobody was expecting that. We talked to everybody out.
We all know about stands. So people say that was nothing. There was not one of those. Talking to the hot shot guys, talking to the Cal Fire guys as the days progressed, it was kind of like, you recognize the guys from out there and talk to them. Every one of them said, I mean, that was something. They were really surprised by the fire behavior, and you know, much like Luke and I've gone to timber fires every season of my career, having worked for the brush rig for most of my career. I've never been in a timber fire, and it's surprising. It was just surprising how long it lasted.
So to just kind of transition into some takeaways, we had touched on it, but you know, the amount of resources out there all operating on one TAC channel, the 3 pages. Here's our division. Just to paint a picture, it's these 3 pages and we're all on that one TAC. And then the neighboring division that also went to that same spot for a lot of the resources was the same. It was also 3 pages. And that's just 2 divisions. And there's like, I think 24. So there's so many resources. So that's going to be something in my mind before we even leave camp. That's just going to, you know, you want to mitigate risk, you want to ask questions, but that's like a higher priority now for me. Even if it's like, hey, we're not expecting a lot of fire behavior, because we all go on these large campaign fires all the time now. But just because most of the fire is mop up doesn't mean that you're not going to see something significant, even if it's counter to what fire behavior analyst is saying in operations. Because the other thing they said is the fire wasn't going to wake up till about 1600, and it woke up at 1300. Like it stood up right away. It didn't like slowly build. It just took off. Yes.
For clarification, you said so both Union and Whiskey were on a single TAC?
They had it they had their own TAC, but independently they had their own. So all the resources were operating off one command, one TAC, if that makes sense. But yeah, the divisions had their own tactical channels per division.
But
Sorry,
3 pages of resources.
But 3 pages,
One
yeah.
TAC.
So I think a lot of people were using other channels, which I don't know you're not supposed to do. I mean, I had to use Caesars Direct to get a hold of Oceanside to have them pull their rig forward when there was fire under one of their tires. Because I couldn't get them on command after multiple attempts. I couldn't get them on or TAC first, then
It
command,
was actually ATEC 93.
or ATAC 93. We had our travel channel. Yeah.
This is a picture of the TRA zoomed out on Google Maps with a view of Mill Creek. And then let's go to the next picture. This is an even better picture. This is the TRA, and this will give you a real sense of how the type of complex topography we're dealing with.
And the scale.
And the scale. When we walked out, you could get some idea, and we did get some idea of the scale. Oh my God, Mill Creek is big. We knew it was big, but it was this draw between these 2 spur ridges, very significant draw. That was black already. So that gave us some comfort.
Sorry, I'm going to step on you.
Yeah.
You couldn't see to the bottom because this just kind of rolls off here. So you could tell, oh, there's something big over there. It's open, but you couldn't actually see down it, which, so it's just relative to then use the topo map, like, oh, that is big. Let me look at the topo map again, is a good idea.
This draw on the other side of that major spur ridge was all green and it was ready to go. And that's what was giving us that convective oven for 26 minutes. It was a little harder to grasp the reality of that, but it was still, it was still possible. But yeah, 6 months ago or however long ago that was, I would have thought that TRA would have been large enough.
So
And it was.
So hindsight, right, the draw that Chief's talking about, and there's the cursor, so people on TV can see. This was all black down here. This had burned. And it had burned up to here. And then down here in the bottom is what we put together is it was kind of spreading laterally. And then the fire was starting to wake up. So it's chunking over and now it's going to run up and use the topography. So then it heats up down here and it starts going up here. We think it spotted up down into this bowl and got that going, and then it grew together. And that's how that's our best guess of what happened. And then when it went up to the top, it kind of turned at this last little piece here and came towards us. And that was what I'm going to guess is those flame links that were hundreds of feet laying down across the road. But that's my non-professional. I'm not a fire behavior analyst. But that's from all the video look at, that's what we surmised.
That's what it seems.
Talk about some takeaways and then do some questions.
Yeah, that's obviously a picture of us taking our strike team photo.
I'll reiterate. So some of the takeaways I touched on, when you're looking at a TRA, we just just don't forget, and this is what I took away. Who else might also be thinking of that TRA? Because it's going to be relative to the environment you're in, what the needs are, the fire behavior. But this really drove it home, like who else and how many resources have driven past the same clearing and also think, oh, this would be a good TRA. Be mindful of, you'll never know for sure until everybody's parked in it. Routes to the safety zones, being proactive. I'm glad we had talked to the dozer operator to improve it. If you're a strike team leader, you can absolutely do that. We talked to the strike team or to the dozer, and he was like, yep, I'll do that. But the communication of like, hey, if we had been talking to actual, my takeaway was be more assertive, getting them and be like, we don't have safety zones. We need to make the TRAs better, because there's not always going to be a safety zone. But then you need to have adequate TRAs, and that's just the reality when you're out in the big forest and it's that big. Parking, we touched on that. So the takeaway for me was if you guys are going to back into their spot and keep the road clear, I'm going to tell my guys now, don't back so far that someone else can fit in front of you. Back enough to be off the road, and then leave your bumper on the road so that if we need to get out, we can get out. Because they backed up to be polite. Hey, let's make more room. There's lots of people, not thinking we're going to have to leave. And it left room for 3-4 vehicles to fill in front of them. I'm not faulting any of our officers or drivers. I'm just using this as a takeaway. Be proactive to remind my guys, hey, let's park and be off the road, but don't leave room in front, just in case something changes for that alternative contingency plan. We'll just fan out and leave the bumpers right on that road. Because no one's going to
We'll
stop.
park 3 deep so that we can get out as a group and still leave room for.
That exit plan.
Would that have left people out to dry, so to speak, when we did that?
Yes.
TRA?
Well,
Depending on how we do.
maybe, but we might have been able to leave sooner, which might have opened up space for those last units that were finally there. We don't know. But that was a big takeaway, lessons learned. And then just how fast things can change. I think you guys saw it on there, and I've been on large fires. I've seen some significant fire behavior. I haven't seen it all, but I was still just in awe of how quickly it changed and then how long it lasted, like the surges of heat. And then hindsight, looking back, when you look at the topography and the amount of fuel down there, you go back and reread the fire behavior analyst and the stuff from IMET, it's like, it does line up with what they said. It just was contradictory to what some of the other information we were getting from the operational tactics and so forth.
It's just the human element and the decision-making process with risk assessment and trigger points and trusting your own instincts.
Our officers did an outstanding job, calm and collected on the radio, calm and collected in the rig, talking with their crews. I was really very pleased and proud of how they all performed. And that was our first operational period. They put us in a hotel at night. We were in trailers. They only gave us a hotel because of what happened. They were like, oh, they felt the incident was like, oh, we'll put you in a hotel tonight. Then we were back on the line the next operational period, and we worked 24. We had fire. We were engaged in direct fire attack, and it was the first of
We had a lot.
many days.
We had great officers, great crews, and a lot of success throughout the strike team. And we put a presentation for this incident, but it sure would have been fun to talk about some of the other stuff we did because it was a really good strike team. Just finishing up on that last learning point. I mean, I come from the background where it's always kind of taught to bury yourself at the hip with the feds or the local unit, and which of course is true. You want to get that local knowledge, but you want to trust your instinct as well. And if I had the perfect answer for that, I'd write a book. There's no perfect answer, because even when you trust your instinct, you have to be able to rationalize it to people, articulate it, and come up with good reasons for it. And
We'll take questions, but the last piece was when we got back to camp. Everybody had a different perspective in their rig, so it's something that's new. They had peer support in camp, so they came out to us and we said, yeah, well, we need to get some rest because we were out all night. We rested, but then when we came back in our next rest period, we went as a strike team over to the peer counselor and just sat down and had kind of like a CISD type of debrief with the peer support people on scene. So it's just something that's new, that's out there. That was a first for me as a strike team leader or firefighter being out on an incident that they have that piece stood up. So just don't forget those resources are there also. And we'll go into questions or comments, or if you guys have anything else you
I'll
want
just
to add.
touch on, just kind of wrap up the mental health aspect. I think after your second off period, the VC fielded a call from Captain Baker, expressing some serious concerns over one of our firefighters, just mental health wise. And so we kind of really went back and forth on what we're going to do. And ultimately I had to just put faith in my captain, and he just said, Jess, the guy who came up, and he's one of our studs, like truly, like never would you question his grit, his ability, his toughness. He just said, he got out and they asked him to go. So he was the firefighter that got out. Yeah, just said, hey, the guy that came up is not the guy that's in my cab right now. He's not all here, mentally. This has changed him. And so we really just struggled on what to do. And ultimately I made the decision to what's in his best interest. I flew Jeremy up. They pulled him off the line. I think Rush 217 kind of wasn't part of the strike team for the beginning part of that work shift. Drove him to Sacramento, put him on a plane. Jeremy met him there, flew him home. I think initially he was a little bit kind of pissed and embarrassed a little bit. But I think once I had a good conversation with him, I think he realized that we made the decision, which from the facts we knew, not being there, our call was to let's just make sure we take care of him, get him home. And, it's water under the bridge now, there's no hard feelings. And he's even said, I've had some time to think, and in hindsight, some of the comments I was making in the cab, I totally see why he made that call. And he and Baker are still good, but I think it's just one of those things that, you never know how something like this is going to affect someone, and you can't, diminish, the impact. So if you heard that someone got flown home, yes, we opted to fly someone home. And I did, again, in hindsight, we probably could have stuck it out, but again, with the information I had, having to make kind of a snap decision before they pushed him out to the line again, we stopped and bring him home. And I stand by that decision every day. So
Thanks for sharing that. And I'll say, as strike team leaders or just engine company captains, firefighters, we always end up facing new things, and you just got to figure it out. And it's not like, oh, there's an algorithm for that. And so this was one of those situations, but the communication with everyone on your crew, particularly Captain Baker, and he was communicating with you guys and us, and then we were okay, we'll navigate. We wanted to support him and his decision. So I was really impressed just how that all transpired, having never seen it happen.
Yeah.
And I don't think it could have gone better, just because of the actions that your agency took and how all the nuances and everything behind the scenes. You guys, to say above and beyond is an understatement to look out for your guy.
Did you guys go through OES for that personnel swap, or it was?
So everybody, yeah, we kept people, the key players knew who was going on. We did touch base with the OES chief once we had a plan and told him our wishes and here's how we're going to execute it. But we came to him with solutions, not a problem. Sure. And then we just had to say yes, and then it got all spooled up. So there was a lot of communication before we went to OES. And then once we had all that, they were like, yeah, I support it.
So the common ant question, it just seems like, so I got up to that fire on like the 5th, so the day
That's
before,
right. You were
the day
division.
before this happened. Yeah, I saw you guys afterwards. But when this happened, it almost almost seems like, and this is kind of a question to you, Dave, is that on the team side, because I was up there as a division, and I had, they gave me 3 divisions, and I was up on the North Juliet, so I was like probably 2 miles north of you guys, and it was not broadcast, like, I'm not during the event, but like even afterwards, it didn't seem like it was a well-known like event. Like this was pretty significant, traumatic for some guys, and just, it was a real deal. And I just think, like, was it talked about it on the team level? Because even in the pre-brief, it really wasn't. And I didn't even, the first I heard of it was, I mean, it's kind of a funny story, but I go into finance the day after, which would be the 7th. And I go in there and I ask somebody, and I say, yeah, I need an S number for, I don't know, a pair of pants or something. I need an S number for that. Okay, so what do you need? The guy behind me, I'm not looking, he goes, I need an S number for a dozer. And I'm looking at it, he goes, no, I'm serious. And it was the dozer operators, or maybe it was division or something like that. What if the guy on the dozer got burned over? What if the guy burned it up? Whoa, wait a minute, how am I finding this out in the middle of the, and it was really weird that they did not.
So the damage that occurred was the Oceanside, that I'm aware of, Oceanside's rig, Rancho Santa Fe had some comp claims. The bulldozer was damaged, but not a total loss. And the division group super, the division actual, his, like all his, the plastic lenses on the rear side of his truck were melted off. That's
But
what
you're asking why none of this was talked about.
Yeah, did you, I mean, do you remember that, Dave? I mean, it doesn't seem like it was talked about very much at all. We had 3 weeks every morning, 6 a.m.
So go back to what I was saying earlier. So after the fact, a few days later, when it was brought to my attention, I went and talked to safety and I asked, what's the plan? Is there going to be some sort of after action? Is there going to be a green sheet, whatever? What's, because it's going to be up to safety and the ICs on what steps they take after the fact for learning. And when it comes down to, and this is not to justify it by any means, and it goes back to what Jordan was just talking about too, on how to report injuries. It's got to be OSHA. There's criteria that have to be met to start creating documents and processes to do green sheets and to do everything else. And if not, again, this is not a perfect system, but if not, then you would have so many different after action green sheets about all sorts of things. Damage occurs to equipment all the time. And this is at the time of the incident. It's not after the fact. It's a fantastic presentation that brings more to life. So when they mean safety and ops and the ICs, when they talk about what they're going to do, it's based on what they're hearing and what they are going to their line safeties on. Okay, what actually happened? They try to navigate through emotions, through experiences, try to navigate the experience of the people who are reporting it, all this stuff to figure out, okay, what's real, what's actual, what do we need to do, and how do we go forward? When they do a green sheet, it's because there needs to be some sort of change in policy. There's severe injury. There is damage or destruction, I should say destruction of equipment. That bulldozer, I did hear about that. There were some circumstances that it wasn't necessarily, it might have been operator error or in the wrong spot, left, there's a bunch of different things. So it didn't quite need it at the time.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about the overall general briefings there. We're like, hey, that's watch this, how we have a significant, wasn't really talking about.
Yeah, and there's a second point to that, and I'll pick up to that. So at the time when they made the decision, because it didn't quite meet that criteria to take it to another level. It's not to say that this shouldn't occur, and they recommended that this type of thing occur, but from the incident, it didn't quite meet that criteria.
Thanks.
But going to,
I feel bad. We're not trying to put you on the spot as
No.
a representative of the team.
Right.
And,
And again, teams aren't perfect. And for this, I'll jump forward a little bit. I'll ask you for this presentation. And I'm going to take, we're all meeting, all the teams are meeting in a few weeks to talk about the past year and everything. And I'm going to bring it to safety and the ops groups and just talk about, okay, there's more to this than you may have heard. So takes me to my next point is when you have things that aren't aligning, things aren't making sense. Perfect examples are your division isn't showing up at briefing, you have to do the breakout,
not reachable, things aren't seeming like they're making sense. TRAs aren't making sense. At the time, obviously, it sounds like you did the right thing. You're communicating, trying to get things approved. If you have to get to a point where you are going to refuse an order, go through those steps. All those things you guys did properly. But when they looked at, okay, what do we need to do to improve for the next day moving forward? Operations is basing those decisions off of what they get from their divisions and what they get from their safety. They're humans as well. They may not be expressing, maybe they're embarrassed, maybe they don't feel like they should have been in a position. They may minimalize it to some degree. So operations, when they're coming up with what they're going to do, they're basing that off of pre-ops from their tactics meetings, and it's only from the information that they're hearing. So they may have been left out in the dark about what really transpired and what occurred. So where I'm going with that is local government is a massive component to any response. There are more times than not, more local government resources on an incident than CAL FIRE, than state resources, or than federal resources. So you guys have, all of us have, we have an advocate in the form of our OES representative that we need to, and you may have done this, and this is more of a blanket statement, go to our OES representative and say, hey, I've seen a lot of problems, and lay it all out, have it prepared, and I think a way to articulate to them, documented even in your Q14s or prep it, and bring it to the OES representative and say, hey, I'm seeing a lot of issues and concerns and problems, i.e. my division not showing up, or whatever it is, TRAs are putting us in areas, comms is a real problem. Because what the OES representative is going to do, he has a direct line to the liaison as well as ops. He's often has a good relationship with the ICs. They're going to go to them and say, hey, we have a problem here, or we're seeing some repeated issues that need to get addressed. And he's going to be able to have substance to that, not just anecdotal, basic things. He's going to have issues that come to them, and it's going to force the ICs and operations to make some changes. So I'm not saying it would have fixed this component, but overall, if it's not meeting the thing, that OES rep has a lot of leverage in how we're doing it, because he's representing all of the local government, again, who oftentimes are far more in numbers, and they need them there than the incident can do without.
Yeah, that all makes perfect sense. It's clear. And I also want to just clarify, and I'm not up here, and Greg and I aren't up here to point fingers and say it was the team or this and that. We're trying to paint a picture of, there was a lot of dynamic factors going on.
Even
Dynamic
the
fire
division
behavior,
that we've talked about,
logistics, yeah.
we ended up becoming friends with him. We worked with him throughout the several shifts. He was a very humble guy. He said, look, Mike, our priorities were getting a little mixed up. This is my battalion. These are the most expensive timber rights in the world. These are my friends. These are my neighbors that own them. He hadn't thought of us. He was honest, which is all you can ask when somebody makes a mistake. And then our very next shift, Captain Abraham and Captain Carranza really helped save the division with some other confusion that was went on. And you guys quickly organized a holding operation for an unexpected fire plan. So there was still mistakes.
He said he was feeling political pressure to protect the timber because of the economic impact it's going to have. And that was into his decision making, which doesn't translate down to the firefighters on the engines. Why are we here? This is just trees, right? There's different perspectives, and you can rationalize or debate or discuss both, but everybody's coming to it their own thing. So there was a lot of logistical hurdles and challenges. There was some frustrating comms thing, but there's also the reality of I also didn't lose back to sight that the division has 3 pages of people to talk to. So it wasn't a surprise that I couldn't get a hold of them too, because the cell signal didn't work and everybody's trying to get a hold of them, and there's a trainee and an actual. So that's not lost either. Not to just cast shade on division or whoever, but to be it was a challenging, complex problem. We were all working it, but the takeaway is trust your instincts, right? If division's saying one thing and you're a strike team leader and he's on the radio, it doesn't mean that you can't, key the mic and express your concerns if you don't have face-to-face, because, normally we do that face-to-face, but if there's not an opportunity, trust your gut and go with it and look out for your guys. And I circle back to some of the decisions we made before it happened. I was grateful, and it was oh man, hindsight, we made some good decisions that we didn't, we could have not made and it would have had nothing happened, but we were proactive and it helped, like the dozer improving the area, pulling up Paula before, just get back to your rig. Those things helped. And in hindsight is always a different perspective than.
It's always fun.
So,
And I'm not saying, like, you guys,
Yeah.
the way you presented it, you guys did exactly what you could do, and it makes perfect sense. I'm talking about just moving forward for
Absolutely.
the next operational periods, or even just for growth. Teams, like I said, they're not perfect. There's always things that can be improved, and they move forward, and they try to move forward and make them the best they can. In terms, like, you show all those resources in one division, when it talks about the control, that appears to be unrealistic. Do they need to build it out further? Maybe they didn't have the resources. That's one big problem too, why they're putting so many teams in small fires. They can't get the overhead. Local units can't get the overhead they need, so we can talk.
we could go forever. Are there any
I just want to
questions?
reemphasize that point. You guys have the voice. And don't feel like, oh, I'm this local government, they may look at me this one way, or I just show up in an area of the state that I'm not used to, because I mostly deal with brush down here. If you have a concern or issue, you have to bring it forward to your OES rep, to the proper channels, because the OES rep is not just going to sit on it. He's going to go have a conversation and try to make improvements.
We had some conversations with, I don't know Rick, don't even know Rick's last name. With Rick. We weren't asking them for anything. We were going to have to check that. We were just we know the guy, I just talked to him.
He did bring forward the concern. I actually just, when you said how they said, I don't want to say it was downplayed, but it wasn't talked about a lot. I think I'm the one that actually called Rick saying, hey, we follow up on this. Rick's going like, we're talking about them. And then, this just recently, just like happened in the last couple of hours. We need to follow up on it. So, like, it made it to me before it made it to Rick. And that's just, it wasn't being talked about a lot, I guess. And something else going back to what Dave Kinder said, you guys as local government, I just looked up since it's always just these pie charts. Local government made up 56% of the entire response to the park fire. That number was actually like 60-something% for the recent element. So yeah, you guys need to have a voice and make sure you guys are the predominant.
Thanks for hanging in, everyone. I know it's been a long one. I wanted to see if anybody out on Teams through the virtual attendance, if you guys had any questions or comments to add. I'll take silence as a no, so speak up or.
From time of arrival, when you guys drove up to the TRA and first get eyes on it, and say, okay, this looks pretty good. So the time of the burnover, how long was that time period?
When we actually parked there?
Yeah, when you show up and you see that little tabletop where we can start parking the 3 units, and then the burnover happens, how long of a time did you have between those 2 points?
I wrote some times down.
Well, we first saw the TRA.
Oh, 2:14.
No.
Stay inside a half an hour.
That's not, it's barely time to get your head wrapped around what you got.
It was.
Okay, anything else
I'm
for
not
these
sure.
guys?
Dean, can you make the QR code bigger? Can you zoom in on? I think you're sharing, right?
Maybe.
Thanks, Chief.
So while you guys are addressing that, I'm gonna be super honest with you. And when I got wind of this, it was actually through our captain, and it went through our chain of command. When I got wind of it, I reached out to Dave, to Chief McQueen. We had a quick discussion, and I was on the phone with Chief Rohodas pretty quick, and Tony shared with me exactly what he just shared. That, yeah, I've already made contact with his OES contact. And there were a lot of dynamics, because we would reach out and we do what we do, right? And I would say, okay, how serious is it? No, we're good. Like, everybody's good. And I heard, we got another assignment that you guys were, getting posed with, being put into another situation that maybe not everyone was ready for, right? It probably would have been fine, but probably not good time, right? You probably needed a day or two or some more time. But the reality is that my gut kept on telling me, like, that's why I called Pender. I called Pender, hey, can you check with your team? The information that I got back was, we're good, we're not meeting the intent. And so, okay, and then I think I had a couple discussions with Chief Rodas, and it kept on getting to that, like, I would get this little fire in my belly, and I would be calmed down by the fact, no, everything's good. Oceanside firefighters got flown home. Shit, like there's a lot of things that were lining up, but then it would kind of cool down. So I don't know what the right answer is for me, which I'm still evaluating, but just gut instinct is that I probably should have pushed a lot harder on the front side. So my request back to you guys is that striking leaders, that if you're in that situation again, and and I know it's hard in that fog, you know, are you making the right decisions? It's better to engage, the better. We've all been in that, and we're all firefighters, right? We all want to engage and stay. None of us want to come home. Right? Bottom line, right? None of us want to come home. But I'm just asking you, give us a heads up, paint us a really good picture of where everybody is, because they may not feel the exact way that you do. And I think Chief McQueen reached out to both of you guys and said, you need to check in with your company officers, and you need to check in with your crews and give us something back, right?
So, yeah.
That happened on pretty quick.
We were able to get cell service about 3 hours after.
We made it a priority to call, so there was no cell service, and then as soon as we got to like the staging area, we were hanging out with the other crew, we kind of got wind that like people were already posting stuff on social media. And so we were like, we need to call home because there's this, you know, reports of a guy flown out, burn victim on our division. We didn't know what, and we still thought he was seriously injured. We didn't know what was getting back. So we drove, once everyone was kind of staged, we did our quick after action. We drove up the hill looking for cell signal, got it, and called Chief and just gave him we didn't know how long we were going to have cell signal. Hey, heads up, there was an incident. There's some stuff on TikTok. There's somebody that, you know, a burn victim flown. All our personnel are accounted for, and okay, we have damage to an engine. It was like a really quick, let me say it before we hang up. And then, you know, tried to follow up with that. But thanks for bringing that up, because it was a different thing. So we knew we had to get information back to you guys at home. But then it kept evolving, because then when we got back to camp, it was like, oh, like some of the guys are still kind of like 1,000-yard stare. And then we, you know, it just kept evolving. Realized, oh, we think this guy's good, and this guy, like you were saying, the gentleman from Oceanside, like that guy was a stud. We actually were worried about other people on the strike team, and so we were talking. So we called, you know, we did the peer support. We called our peer support just to get recommendations on how to talk to the guys. We gave the literature. Hey, if you don't want to do the group thing, here's some resources. But it's a challenge, and it was a learning curve, and definitely a first for me in my career, just navigating that at a campaign fire and realizing that everybody experienced it in different ways, even though we were all in that same little piece of dirt.
Yeah, and I'm not here to place judgment on you guys. I've been in those situations. We've all been in those situations that nobody knows what it's like unless you were there at that time in that TRA, right? So what you guys did, I think you made the best decisions that you could with the information that you had. There's some sloppy stuff that happened, you know, never having face to face with your division. That's not on you, that's on your division, in my opinion, especially being in that area. Having the dozer operator be transported to be assessed, he is a patient. Okay, so that was one of the things that got told me. Oh, he just went to go get it looked at. It was just an assessment. He wasn't injured. He was bullshit. So there's little things that I don't necessarily agree with. So to change our perspectives, Chief McQueen as his own coordinator, it's gonna change the way that we assess that, and we may pull you home a little bit quicker. I'm not saying I'm not trying to be reactionary or knee-jerk, but I think like what you said is that you talk to your crews, everybody's good, right? And then all of a sudden you're still seeing that stare, or you're just seeing that uncomfortableness that as company officers and striking leaders, sometimes it's risk versus gain, and okay, let's wrap this thing up and go direct with DO1s to communicate with us. Because at the end of the day, it's the people that matter the most, not the logging rights.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's what I want to make sure that we got.
I know North Zone coordinator in 01. That's why I went direct with these guys in the short brief period of time. They actually had comms on cell phones just to get some information so I can put that out on WhatsApp to the other 01s to throw a bucket of water on this fire that's potentially taking off on social media. And they didn't even know about the TikTok. I mean, I get that, and I'm matching up what I just talked to these guys about. I'm like, holy crap, what the hell these guys just go through? And now I got other O1s and O2s and the rest of the fire service, the fire service. We have great communications when we want it, not when we don't want it. But you're trying to get in front of some of this stuff very quickly. So my biggest ask as a coordinator out here, even if you think it might be just a small thing, at least give it to us and then we can get it out to the masses. Just say, hey, our guys are good. Bill is like notorious. He'll get on WhatsApp and he's telling us, hey, we're good, we're going to division such and such. And yeah, it's intel for us to feed to the masses out here because we're trying to fight a rumor mill, social media, all these different things that are out there. So, and not only that, but you guys have families out there. What are they going to call? They're going to call the agency. Hey, I just saw this on TikTok. Is my husband on that, or significant other on that strike team? Holy crud! And I don't want to look like I'm being the rock back of my heels, but I want to make sure that getting good intel to give intel out. And, yeah. So even if you think it's a small thing, at least tell us, or hey, we're still seeing things progress like you guys saw, day after day after day. But that was one of those things I reached out to Jesse Speck. Because then I'm hearing about the firefighter, and now I got to close the loop and make sure, hey, is there something as a zone coordinator that can help Oceanside or anybody else that is on that strike team logistically. But Chief Speck was already on top of it. They have a plan, and but get that out to our O1s and make sure, hey, we're good. Things are going to happen for folks out there. So
Just to muddy the waters more for your guys' decision-making process, I think for the majority of us, the most therapeutic thing was getting out there on the next shifts and working hard, making a difference, turning some of that red line into black line, supporting the plan, hiking, and doing all the things we do.
And that's part of the evaluation, because at the end of the day, this job is inherently dangerous.
Right.
Right? There's a fine balance to that.
We'll cover this on my strike team, but did the posting of the videos come from your own strike team? Did you get outpaced by your own people? No, so there was the first one that came to my attention, I don't have TikTok, but somebody showed it to me. And it came from, I think from the vantage point from one of the Shasta engines. And it was interesting because it had what looked like a filter on it and then like music in the background. So it kind of like sensationalized it. It had this I don't know, like a movie kind of feel to it. And then like a red filter, because we had point of views at the exact same time and you put them side by side. One's like red and it looks like this inferno, and the other one, it's still people in the TRA, but it wasn't as sensationalized. So that did not come up our strike team. Thinking we were going to be doing interviews and stuff, or just wanted to we were doing a lot of self-reflection. Did we contribute to this as the strike team leaders, right? I mean, that's a heavy moment. We're driving away and like I'm the STEN actual. So I asked for everybody if you have any videos, can you send them to me from the guys? But I don't know about any, as far as I know, I didn't see any getting posted. I think there was one, but it's posted and it was quickly taken down.
I was going to say, there was one from.
There was one from our agency that was posted and it was taken down.
Yeah, and we'll cover that during our, but that, we really got to stress that because that's a big, it's a cultural thing and you're going to get outpaced.
It wasn't posted by our guy. It was shared with a fireman back at home who posted it from home. Yeah. And so it was this round, and then it was interesting because it was like, the fireman was like, hey, dude, why are you posting that? Take it down. Like the fireman that shared it was upset because he's like, they don't make light of what just went through. He was just trying to.
Real quick, of the stands that are in your vehicles, how many of you have Starlink? Okay, so one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to add Starlink to our PC strike team vehicles for that reason, to get quicker communications off for a cell phone, so our guys can not get jammed up like that. So
We don't have Starlink, by the way. He just raised his hand. We just got him a pad of paper.
We have technology. I want to be respectful of your guys' time and kind of wrap it up. So maybe one last one.
Maybe hopefully a really quick clarification you can make is, we know there's definitions to words and terms that get used. Burnover and then incident within incident, the other one that I've heard relative to this. Was an IWI
discussed in any of your conversations afterwards and clarified that with the definition you guys were comfortable with of, yes, a burnover occurred and we were involved in it, or a flare-up increase in fire behavior occurred with us in our TRA that was not a burnover.
IWI was never used. Luke and I were very careful not to use the term burn over at first because we didn't want to make that clarification.
We had limited information, so we talked to the division about that.
We just
Specifically, are we going to call
Luke,
this?
the division who we've talked about plenty. He was like, yeah, that call it burn over. I think that's what it was, but that's as high up the chain of official terminology for this event.
The incident never formally referred to it as a burnover. And so we had conversations about that, like, you know, what constitutes, I remember looking up back in camp, the definition of burnover, to see if I had it right. For semantics.
Significant fire behavior.
And the IWI was not declared. So yeah, I mean, we could, and an after action, like there's plenty of like, you know, things to do different next time with all the involved parties. So thanks for that question though. Wish we had a better answer. We talked about it a lot just in our cab, the terms and the IWI, why it was declared. And our firemen had a lot of those same questions on the strike team. So yeah, I want to close, just wrap it up. So thank you guys for being engaged. It was kind of long. We didn't know how long it was going to go. And I know the videos took up a lot of time, but hopefully they gave you guys some perspective on what, you know, some of you guys, your personnel went through, heard the stories. I just want to I was just really grateful, a lot of gratitude and humility up here for all the personnel that were with us up there, both during and after the incident, and to continue to keep working. I was really proud and really impressed with how our guys stand out when we're surrounded by agencies throughout the entire state and beyond. The amount of work that the guys put in after such a thing, and it is really validating and makes that position incredibly rewarding and humbling all at the same time. So I'm up here with gratitude for you guys. Thanks for listening to us and making this a comfortable environment for us too while we talk about this. And if you guys ever want to follow up with me sidebar personally, I'm sure Greg too. Like
I would say that is some of the finest group of firefighters I worked with on that strike team. All the strike teams that have forced them to be part of here. But these guys really stood out. And I know we're running short on time, but if you guys have feedback or maybe something I can take home and listen and learn from, let me know when you get a chance. And yeah, there's a bunch of talent in this room that I love learning from.
Thanks for coming home with 22.
Okay, thank you guys. Thank you. We'll catch up with the rest of the strike teams. Like I said, we'll get a meeting set up. I know this one went long, a lot of them go short, so they balance out. I think this was very important to get done. So thank you guys for getting up here in front of everyone and doing what you did. Thanks. Don't forget the QR code.